Chapter 376, Manifestation of the World Tree. A heavy, low rumble echoed through the air like hidden thunder trapped within dark clouds, sending a cold shiver through everyone present. The Yin Great Dao spread rapidly, resembling thick sludge from an abyss as it blanketed the world. The very fabric of space seemed corroded by its touch, collapsing and sinking inward. The aura of the Yin Soul surged toward its peak. Though constrained by the restrictive laws of the Earth's sovereign secret realm, his power pushed the absolute limits of the Dao Integration Realm, far surpassing anyone else in the vicinity. Deep, frigid, and terrifying, his presence felt like looking into the face of death itself. The gathered geniuses instinctively retreated in panic. They stared in horror, wondering who this false Jiang Qiankun truly was and why he possessed such overwhelming strength. Qin Kuan and Qin Lan fared no better. The ancestral projections they had summoned could not withstand the crushing weight of the Yin Soul's presence and were instantly pulverized. The two of them scrambled backward in shock. "Cousin, this man is no ordinary genius of the Xuantian Realm," Qin Lan sent through a mental transmission. "He must be an old monster who sealed his own cultivation to enter this place." Qin Kuan nodded slightly, his eyes fixed on the Yin Soul. His earlier rage began to fade, replaced by a cold calm. It made sense now. A barren land like the Xuantian Realm had no right to produce a peer capable of matching him. If his opponent was an ancient expert, then his recent setbacks were at least logical. This person is likely an enemy of the Jiang family, plotting against them and Jiang Xuan in the shadows, Qin Kuan surmised. A mocking smile touched his lips. How interesting. The tiny Jiang family has managed to provoke quite a few powerful enemies. What should we do now? Qin Lan asked. It is rare to see such a perfect display of dogs biting dogs, Qin Kuan replied with a sneer. We will simply wait. Once they have exhausted one another, we shall step in and reap the rewards. Qin Lan nodded and added a quick compliment. You are truly brilliant, cousin. By now, the Yin Soul was advancing toward Jiang Xuan one step at a time. His fury manifested as a creeping abyss of Yin sludge that locked down the surrounding space and corroded everything it touched. He had created a supreme domain where Jiang Xuan and his companions were nothing more than cornered animals waiting for the slaughter. Jiang Xuan, I blame my own mercy for letting you live this long, the Yin Soul hissed, his killing intent overflowing. Nangong Mingde's expression shifted, and she stepped firmly in front of Jiang Xuan. Facing the Yin Soul without fear, she unleashed her fire realm once again. Her Nirvana Phoenix physique pushed to its limit, sending torrents of golden divine flames surging forth to create a raging sea of fire. In the face of danger, she proved her resolve through action. His strength is at the absolute brink of the sovereign realm, Nangong Mingde said in a heavy voice. I can likely hold him for the time it takes an incense stick to burn. You must find an opening to escape. A wave of warmth traveled through Jiang Xuan's heart. He reached out, wrapping his arm around her slender waist. With a touch of playful reproach, he laughed. Since when is it right for a woman to stand in front of her man? Don't worry. I have already prepared for this. Everything will be fine. Nangong Mingde bit her lip, looking at Jiang Xuan before nodding hesitantly. The power behind the curtain has been flushed out, so let's finish this, Jiang Xuan said, turning his gaze toward the distance. His voice was calm, yet it resonated through the heavens and echoed in all directions. He was looking toward Jiang Hong and the others, who were rushing toward the scene at high speed. The 5 elders, including the 4th elder and 2 supreme elders, did not hesitate. They tore away their seals, and their cultivations instantly exploded to the peak of the Dao Integration Realm. Their powerful auras intertwined with the Great Dao as they shattered the void, streaking through the sky like falling stars. The explosion of Dao energy instantly neutralized the crushing pressure of the Yin Soul. We pay our respects to the young patriarch. The 7 experts bowed to Jiang Xuan before immediately unleashing their killing techniques. They took positions in all directions, working together to set up a restrictive formation that locked down the void and surrounded the Yin Soul. While the Yin Soul was undeniably powerful and possessed a true cultivation far beyond theirs, he was currently limited by the secret realm's restrictions. He was forced down to the same peak Dao integration level as the elders. Faced with 7 opponents of the same rank, the scales had shifted. The Yin-Yang sacred ground. The 4th elder stared at the Yin Soul, his eyes flashing with rage. You insignificant pests dare to plot against the Jiang family? You seek death. The elders did not waste another word. The 7 of them attacked with fury, their divine techniques and Dao arts twisting the laws of the world and annihilating the void. Ancient divine light pierced through the heavens. The Yin Soul's expression turned as dark as water as his inner malice grew. It turned out that the Jiang family geniuses he had been eyeing were actually powerful elders in disguise. He thought he was the one plotting, but they were the ones fishing. Fine. Very well. The Yin Soul laughed out of sheer rage. He, a lifelong hunter, had finally been pecked in the eye by a sparrow. His cold gaze swept over the 4th elder and the others. He sensed that all 7 of them had been marked with a Dao brand. Perhaps they had received legacies while he was busy hunting Qin Kuan, or perhaps they had accepted the gifts from the god of wealth just moments ago. Regardless, once the Dao brand was planted, their fate was sealed. Even if you saw through my plan, so what? You have already fallen into my trap. The Yin Soul mocked them, his hands forming a series of mysterious seals as treacherous energy surged. Deep, black light suddenly erupted from within the bodies of the seven elders. The Dao brands inside them flared with power, extending thousands of rule threads like tentacles that wrapped around their souls. They were suddenly unable to control or drive their own bodies. The black light transformed into deep, silent flames that began to burn. Within moments, their physical forms showed signs of melting. Even Jiang Hong and Fei Xian, who were still rushing toward them, were seized by the same control as their bodies began to dissolve. The seven elders fell into a panic. Despite all their caution and defensive measures, they had still been caught in the trap. Young Patriarch, run! The fourth elder shouted in desperation. He pushed his Dao foundation to the breaking point, trying to force his way through the Dao brand's restriction. He was prepared to break his seals further to gain sovereign-level power to protect Jiang Xuan, even if it meant being crushed to death by the secret realm's laws. Now you know fear? It is too late. You treated me like a clown, but you failed to see if you had the strength to back it up. The Yin Soul laughed coldly as he lunged toward Jiang Xuan. The abyssal sludge surged around him like a great beast, ready to swallow everything. Jiang Xuan's face darkened. Was the plan really going to fail here? That made no sense. Master, let me handle this. Suddenly, the world tree seedling in his dantian volunteered. It flew out of its own accord. What had been a tiny sprout with only 3 leaves instantly expanded into a colossal tree that seemed to prop up the heavens. The 3 leaves grew into massive canopies that felt like entire worlds, carrying the weight of stars and the essence of the universe. This magnificent pressure instantly dominated the entire area. Even the rules of the Earth's sovereign secret realm began to tremble as if they could not sustain such a presence. Almost simultaneously, an obscure aura arose from the deepest part of the secret realm, accompanied by an ancient voice filled with shock. That is the World Tree? Chapter 377. Does Qin Kuan want the spotlight again? The World Tree? The crowd erupted into an uproar. Disbelief was written on every face. This supreme artifact, a thing existing only in legends, was actually in the hands of Jiang Xuan? Yang Kong rubbed his eyes, unable to believe what he was seeing. Waves of shock crashed through his mind, making it impossible to keep his composure. What was happening? Was this the true hidden foundation of the Jiang family? Jiang Xuan was a monstrous talent, that was certain, but carrying the world tree itself felt far too exaggerated. Beyond the shock, a sudden shiver of dread ran down Yang Kong's spine. Was such a titan truly something his pure Yang Sword Palace could afford to offend or seek revenge against? In that moment, his mind raced through 1,000 terrifying possibilities. Qin Kuan stared blankly at the world tree. His pupils contracted sharply, and a burning light of greed ignited in the depths of his eyes. If he could seize the world tree, what need would he ever have to worry about his path to the Great Dao? He gave a subtle, hidden signal to Qin Lan, instructing her to send word back to the clan and report this to the Patriarch. As the Patriarch's daughter, Qin Lan possessed highly efficient communication methods that could bypass the barriers of the Xuantian Realm, which had not yet fully dissipated. She nodded understandingly and secretly activated a shadow recording talisman to capture the scene before crushing it to send the message home. Keep a close eye on the situation, Qin Kuan whispered through a mental transmission. Prepare to seize the world tree. Don't worry, cousin, Qin Lan replied. I have already sent word to father. Even if we cannot take it this moment, once father sends reinforcements, the world tree will inevitably belong to us. The world tree? The Yin Soul's face changed drastically. His heart was a chaotic mix of shock, rage, and wild joy. He was furious that he had received no information about this from Jiang Qiankun, but he was ecstatic at the prospect of claiming a world tree seedling as an unexpected windfall. With the essence blood of the Jiang family spirit race, he and the Yin Yang Saint Lord could surely fuse and attain the Yin Yang Great Dao. If they added the world tree to the mix, they wouldn't just reach the Saint Realm. They would have a genuine chance at the long-lost immortal realm. The Yin Soul's eyes burned with intensity. By now, the rapidly expanding body of the world tree seedling had already shattered the boundaries of the Grotto of Blessing. A vast, boundless, and supreme aura rippled outward, instantly neutralizing all energy and laws in the vicinity. Not only was the Yin Soul's Yin Great Dao extinguished, but even the towering divine statues of the grotto could not withstand the pressure. With a collective boom, they crumbled into fine dust. Of the 3,000 statues, Jiang Xuan had already taken over 1,000. The remaining 1,000 were now utterly destroyed. With no place left to be stored, their massive energy leaked out, floating through the air in dense, shimmering clouds. We cannot let this go to waste. The world tree seedling gently waved its 3 tender leaves. A mysterious vibration rippled out like a massive, invisible hand, gathering all the scattered energy in an instant. Then, it handed it all over to the life sprite. Third brother, make sure to look after little tree in the future. The seedling spoke with a fawning tone. If you have any extra life divine chi, please think of me first. I am a tree that knows how to show gratitude. Give me a few strands of life chi today, and when I strike it rich in the future, I will build a whole world for you to live in. In the master's dantian, the seedling felt its status was low. It usually had to settle for the scraps left by the first and second brothers. Heaven only knew how much energy a developing world tree actually needed. It was never full, it was constantly starving. It had volunteered for this fight specifically to secure a decent meal for itself. The life sprite calmly accepted the massive influx of energy and gave a nod. On the surface, it appeared composed and indifferent, but internally, it was trembling. This was surreal. It had just watched the legendary world tree bow and scrape to call it brother. With its meal secured, the world tree seedling worked with renewed vigor. Its 3 leaves pulsed again, and the invisible hands of mysterious energy reached out to the 7 elders and the 2 others in the distance. With a gentle tug, it yanked the Dao brands clean out of them. In a series of strange, crunching sounds, the Dao brands were ground down into pure energy and swallowed into the seedling's belly. The portion is a bit small, the seedling grumbled. But energy is energy, and it was better than nothing. Done, master. The tree called out to Jiang Xuan before flying back into his dantian. The Yin Soul stood frozen. This specific Dao brand was a secret technique he had obtained from the Earth Emperor's secret realm. It was treacherous and mysterious, something even a saint would find difficult to unravel. Yet, the world tree had neutralized it with a casual flick. The world tree truly deserves its reputation as a supreme divine object. The Yin Soul felt conflicted. Having his elaborate plans crushed in an instant was painful, but seeing the tree's power only made his desire for it grow. No matter. With his own strength, he might still have a chance. Without further hesitation, the Yin Soul erupted with power and lunged toward Jiang Xuan. Bastard! The 7 elders, now free from control, glared with wide eyes and roared. They unleashed their killing techniques and Dao arts once more, striking at the Yin Soul with lethal precision. After a brief and violent clash that shook the heavens, a dull thud echoed through the air. The Yin Soul was sent flying hundreds of feet. His pitch-black body was riddled with pits where rule energy continued to ravage his form. It was clear that at the peak of the Dao Integration Realm, the Yin Soul could not win a 7-on-1 fight. He glared coldly at the elders. Knowing he could not prevail, he activated a life-saving technique. His body melted into a pool of sludge, merging with the Yin Great Dao to corrode the void and slip through the elders' blockade. He vanished into the cracks of space. With his plan thwarted and his strength insufficient to win the fight, there was no point in staying. It was better to retreat and wait for another opening. If he stayed, he risked being killed. Furthermore, he sensed a faint, ancient, and powerful energy ripple coming from the depths of the secret realm. Remembering what the god of wealth had said, he suspected the Earth Emperor might not actually be dead. He had tampered with the rules of the realm. If the Earth Emperor truly revived, he would be the first person to die. Facing risks on both sides, he had to flee. The 7 elders looked grim. The target's methods were strange, and now that he had chosen to escape, they truly could not force him to stay. They descended to the ground and knelt before Jiang Xuan. We have failed in our duty by letting him escape, the 4th elder said. Please punish us, young patriarch. They had intended to redeem themselves through this action, but the enemy had slipped through their fingers again. They could only honestly ask for punishment. Jiang Xuan waved them off, unconcerned. The opponent was likely a clone of the Yin Yang Saint Lord and had come prepared. It was normal that they couldn't keep him there. We have successfully identified the force behind the scenes, so this trip is a success, Jiang Xuan said calmly. Once we are finished here, we will make the Yin Yang sacred ground pay the price. The elders responded in unison. Yes. Is he just leaving? The watching geniuses were stunned by the Yin Soul's sudden retreat. He had arrived with such momentum and elaborate planning, even going so far as to impersonate Jiang Qiankun to plot against the entire Jiang family. They had expected a battle to the death where either the intruder fell or Jiang Xian's group was wiped out. No one expected it to end so abruptly. Damn it, Qin Kuan cursed under his breath. When that fake Jiang Qiankun was hunting him, the man had been unreasonably fierce and arrogant. Why did he turn so soft the moment he faced the Jiang family? For an old monster plotting a grand scheme, shouldn't he have more cards to play? Was that really it? What do we do now, cousin? Qin Lan whispered. Qin Kuan let out a cold laugh. Simple. We take the world tree for ourselves. The tiny Jiang family would never dare to make an enemy of the immortal Qin family. He began walking toward Jiang Xuan, stopping about 100 feet away. Standing in midair, he looked down at Jiang Xuan and spoke coolly. Jiang Xuan, it is truly rare for a place like Xuantian to produce a talent such as yourself. Jiang Xuan paused, looking at Qin Kuan with a strange expression. Was there something wrong with this guy's head? I presume you know of the immortal Qin family and our status within the Kunlun domain. Qin Kuan continued, a faint smile appearing on his face. Get to the point, Jiang Xuan snapped, his lip twitching with annoyance. Qin Kun's eyes darkened slightly, but he maintained his composure. If you are willing to gift the world tree to my Qin family, I can promise you on behalf of the clan that the longevity Jiang family will stand tall in the Xuantian Realm forever, thriving without end. Furthermore, Qin Kuan glanced at Nangong Mingde and gave a light chuckle. This woman shall also remain yours to keep. Chapter 378. Daring to hold back while fighting me. Jiang Xuan, handing over the world tree is the best choice for both you and the Jiang family. Qin Lan spoke up to support her cousin. My father is the current patriarch of the Qin family. He rules an immortal clan that dominates the Kunlun domain. With a single word from him, your family can remain prosperous for eternity. Furthermore, with our backing, no one in this realm will dare challenge you for Nangong Mingde. Qin Lan harbored her own secret motives. Seeing her cousin readily give up his claim on Nangong Mingde for the sake of profit was exactly what she wanted. A small smile played across her lips. The geniuses and prodigies in the crowd winced, watching the pair with disbelief. They wondered if the two were simply insane. No matter how powerful or overbearing the Qin family was, that influence was in another world entirely. Whether that power could even reach the Xuantian realm was debatable. More importantly, they were currently inside the Earth's sovereign secret realm, facing multiple experts capable of exerting peak Dao integration strength. How could these two be so thick-headed and loud-mouthed? Bold, Yang Kong remarked, raising a thumb. You do not see people this foolish very often these days. Strange looks were cast from every direction. Suddenly, Yang Kong's expression stiffened as he thought of Ming Litian. He wondered if that man had lost his mind as well, thinking only with his lower half. Ming Litian actually wanted to lay hands on Zhao Fuyao and Luo Xinglan. Setting Zhao Fuyao aside, Luo Xinglan and Jiang Xuan had a deep history. She had once killed a void god for him. At that thought, Yang Kong shuddered. His face turned grim. This was bad. His own pure Yang Sword Palace had its own idiot to deal with. What on earth am I supposed to do? He felt a surge of anxiety. Ming Litian relied on his master, a celestial sword immortal, and wielded a sacred inheritance weapon. Yang Kong had no way to restrain him. Jiang Xuan looked down at Qin Kuan and Qin Lan with hooded eyes. He showed no reaction to their delusional words. Logically, he should have been furious, but getting angry at two fools felt like giving them too much credit. Nangong Mingde remained calm as well. She silently stepped to Jiang Xuan's side. In a situation like this, it was only right for her man to handle things. She only needed to stand firmly behind him. The fourth elder and the others, however, were livid. Their cold gazes were filled with murderous intent. They looked at the two Qin cousins as if they were already dead. No matter how arrogant they were or how much they hid behind their family name, they could not insult the young patriarch and his future wife. This was a death sentence, not just for these two, but for the entire Qin family behind them. They were now at the top of the Jiang family's hit list. Young patriarch, you do not need to lift a finger, the fourth elder said in a low voice. I will finish these two foul-mouthed animals right now. No need. Jiang Xuan waved him off and stepped forward. I will do it myself. His tone was flat, yet it seemed to carry a freezing frost that chilled the void. He slowly drew the green blade from his back. Solar divine fire naturally clung to the steel. He swung the sword with a light, effortless motion. Chapter of the Great Sun. The sword manifested as a massive sun hanging high in the sky. Brilliant divine flames rolled out in waves of heat, so intense they scorched the void. The surrounding 10,000 feet transformed into a domain of pure yang fire, incinerating all universal laws. The terrifying slaughter intent accompanied the heat as it swept toward Qin Kuan and Qin Lan. The spectators retreated in terror, their eyes wide with shock. Who said Jiang Xuan only had the cultivation of an early heavenly element stage? This power was impossible for someone at that level. It was a complete deception. What? The chapter of the Great Sun? Yang Kong blurted out. The crowd turned toward him in confusion. Realizing his slip, Yang Kong immediately shut his mouth, but his heart was racing. How did Jiang Xuan master the foundational inheritance of the pure Yang Sword Palace? It made no sense. He felt a sinking premonition and cursed his predecessors. What on earth had the last 2 generations of sword masters been doing while he was sealed away? Brother Yang, what is this chapter of the Great Sun? A genius from a major sect asked politely. Yang Kong's expression shifted rapidly, but he chose to reveal a portion of the truth. It is a sword technique of ultimate yang and rigidity, consisting of 13 forms. If all 13 are mastered, its power rivals a peak saint-grade inheritance. Furthermore, it is said to contain a trace of the sun's true essence. At its peak, it can summon the blessing of the sun itself, possessing peerless killing power that can sweep away gods and demons. The crowd was stunned. Jiang Xuan possessed such a terrifying sword inheritance. Why was there no mention of this in any of the information they had gathered? Why do you know so much about it, Brother Yang? The genius asked again, hoping to trade for more details. Yang Kong's face darkened. He looked at the man with such coldness that he almost considered killing him on the spot. He had shared information out of kindness, yet the man kept digging. It was the inheritance of his own sect, And as the reincarnation of the third-generation sword master, of course he knew everything about it. His frustration grew, but so did his resolve. Jiang Xuan was not someone the pure Yang Sword Palace could afford to provoke. In his past life, Yang Kong had tried to comprehend this technique, but could not even find the starting point. It only provided a general outline, leaving the 13 forms to be realized through self-enlightenment. He considered his own sword talent to be monstrous, yet he had been completely lost. Looking at Jiang Xuan, it was clear he had practiced this for a long time. At the very least, he had mastered the basics. The gap in their talent was obvious. If it comes down to it, Yang Kong thought, a murderous glint in his eyes, that fool Ming Litian might just have to die. Qin Kuan watched the incoming strike and narrowed his eyes. He was surprised that someone at the early heavenly element stage could exert such power. I underestimated you, he said with a light chuckle. Despite his words, he did not take the threat seriously. Jiang Xuan was not like the old monster impersonating Jiang Qiankun. No matter how high his combat power was, his base cultivation was too low to be a real threat. In Qin Kun's mind, Jiang Xuan's refusal to let the other experts intervene was a sign of backing down. He assumed Jiang Xuan was just putting on a show to save face. After all, no one could ignore the might of the immortal Qin family. Certainly not the tiny Jiang family. He assumed Jiang Xuan just wanted to act tough in front of his woman. Fine, I will play along for a bit, Qin Kuan thought. He stepped forward and waved his sleeve with casual grace, calling upon the laws of the Great Dao to form a domain against the sword strike. The next moment, his face went pale. The waves of heat arrived, carrying a destructive power that instantly incinerated his domain. This is bad. Qin Kuan scrambled backward, desperately unleashing divine techniques to block and erode the force of the strike. He had vastly underestimated his opponent. The power of that single swing was at least at the late heavenly element stage. Moreover, the weapon in Jiang Xuan's hand was a true divine artifact. Damn it, why does everyone have a divine artifact? Qin Kuan grumbled inwardly. Were they really this common in the Xuantian realm? By then, Jiang Xuan had turned into a blur of afterimages, closing the gap with lightning speed. He swung again, a brilliant sun descending with the blade. Simultaneously, he manifested his lightning avatar, the vermilion bird body, and the human monument. Jiang Xuan unleashed everything at once, intending to kill Qin Kuan in a single burst. Daring to hold back while fighting me? Who gave you such courage? Jiang Xuan's voice was laced with pure disdain. Chapter 379. Who dares harm my descendant? The 10-foot-tall lightning avatar stood between heaven and earth. Its hands reached into the void, pulling out a lightning spear with overbearing force. Silver-white light shot across the world, and a breath of destruction rhythmically pulsed as the weapon pierced the sky. The lightning avatar held the spear high and thrust it down toward Qin Kuan. Around them, thunder raged and lightning snakes danced wildly, transforming the area into an ancient prison of storms. It looked like a god wielding authority over the element of lightning, descending to strike down a mortal. At the same time, the vermilion bird's sacred body activated with full force. The phantom of the vermilion bird spread its wings, wrapping brilliant feathers in brownish-green flames that burned through the laws of the world. Thanks to a recent transformation, the vermilion bird body had evolved into a sacred body. The bird phantom had grown significantly, looking almost solid. While the grade of its flames was still perhaps lower than the solar divine fire, the power provided by the sacred body was terrifying. Its destructive force was now nearly equal to the power of a great Dao. The vermilion bird phantom lunged toward Qin Kuan alongside the lightning avatar. This pincer attack created a scene of total apocalypse. The entire grotto of blessing shook violently, as if it would collapse at any moment under the strain. The gathered geniuses watched with pale faces and wide eyes. Was this truly a sight that could be caused by someone who had only just entered the heavenly element realm? Even the false Jiang Qiankun from earlier had not seemed this overwhelming. Facing the twin assault, Qin Kun's composure finally broke. Fear began to take root and grow rapidly in his heart. This was not the power of a newcomer to the heavenly element level. He felt as though the laws of the Xuantian realm had gone mad. With no other choice, Qin Kuan forced his bloodline to activate again, calling forth the ancestral projection. Perhaps because it had been shattered by the Yin Soul earlier, this new projection was visibly thinner and weaker. But Qin Kuan could not afford to care about that. This Jiang Xuan was simply a freak. If he did not use the ancestral projection, he had no confidence in winning. It made no sense to him. He was supposed to be in the Dao Integration Realm. He was losing his mind with frustration. Qin Kuan drove the projection to move with him. Supreme rules surged out, forming a bloodline domain of the spirit race to weaken the vermilion bird phantom as much as possible. Simultaneously, he charged toward the lightning avatar. His fists flew like meteors, moving in profound arcs to form a dominant offensive posture. Thunder and earth roared. The world felt like it was falling apart as dark turbulence rose from the void. Qin Kuan used the strength of the ancestor to smash the lightning spear, dissipating the endless arcs of electricity. However, The lightning still managed to enter his body, causing blood to spray from small explosions across his skin. The vermilion bird phantom also managed to break through the bloodline domain before its flames were exhausted. The terrifying fire energy scorched Qin Kuan, making him feel like meat on a grill. Qin Kuan grew pale and let out a series of muffled groans. He had stopped the attack, but he was badly wounded. But this was only the beginning. Jiang Xuan had used the opening to vanish. He appeared silently behind Qin Kuan. He held the human monument in his hand, though he did not manifest the shadow of a towering mountain for suppression. Today, Jiang Xuan was simply using the monument as a brick. He intended to beat Qin Kuan with it. To deal with a stupid and malicious fool, the most honest method was often the best way to teach them a lesson. Using the Tianyin secret art, Jiang Xuan moved like a ghost. He was not necessarily the fastest, but his ability to hide his presence was peerless. He moved behind Qin Kuan with the monument raised, and Qin Kuan did not notice him for a crucial second. Jiang Xuan had mostly used this art to hide his identity and change his appearance. He had almost forgotten that this inheritance came from a Jiang ancestor who specialized in assassination. The correct way to use this art was for a killing strike. Jiang Xuan weighed the monument in his hand. A person's height would probably increase 3 or 4 times instantly as their body was smashed downward. Jiang Xuan swung the human monument with all his might toward Qin Kun's head. Qin Kun was a genius of the Dao Integration Realm after all, and his spiritual senses were sharp. Sensing a crisis, his instincts took over. He accelerated to his limit, trying to dodge. Jiang Xuan had anticipated this. Strike. The green blade he had been using was already hanging high in the air. Following his mental command, it swung down on its own. Boosted by the solar divine fire, the sword manifested a great sun. The brilliant flames incinerated the surrounding space, effectively locking the void and trapping Qin Kun. Qin Kun had no choice but to deal with the sword falling toward him. The ancestral projection merged with his body, granting him the majestic power of his forefather. Break! Qin Kun roared, throwing a punch toward the sword. A dull thud echoed through the grotto. The brilliant sun shattered into sparks, and the green blade was sent flying. Qin Kun appeared unharmed, though his clothes were scorched. However, that was only the surface. The dull sound had not just come from the collision of techniques. It was also the sound of the human monument meeting Qin Kun's hard skull. Qin Kun felt his vision spin. He felt lightheaded, and for a moment, he saw stars dancing before his eyes. What? Jiang Xuan looked at the monument in his hand, and then at Qin Kun's head. He was surprised the man's skull had not turned into mush. To have a head that thick was impressive. The Dao Integration Realm really was something else. Let's try again. Jiang Xuan swung the monument once more. Qin Kun was already dizzy and his reactions were sluggish, but the crowd watched the scene with their mouths hanging open. Could a fight really be conducted this way? Cousin, watch out. Qin Lan screamed a warning and flew forward. She summoned her own ancestral projection and a high-grade Dao artifact, charging toward Jiang Xuan. She did not expect to kill him, only to force him to back away from her cousin. Qin Kun snapped out of his daze. Enduring the pain of a split soul, he instinctively retreated. Jiang Xuan did not want to let this perfect opportunity go. He commanded the green blade to strike at Qin Lan to slow her down while he continued to hunt Qin Kun with the monument. Qin Kun's face was pale as fury and shame mixed in his gut. He was confident he could crush Jiang Xuan in a fair fight, but this despicable man was using sneak attacks. Now that he was injured and his soul was unstable, he could not use his full strength. He had to run. Qin Kun retreated until he reached Qin Lan's side. He snarled, "Cousin, hold him off for a moment. Once I stabilize my soul, I will cut this boy down myself." "Do not worry, cousin," Qin Lan replied. At that moment, Jiang Xuan used the Tianyin secret art to split his form into 2 ghosts. He attacked from the left and the right, closing in on both of them. "Qin Kun, eat another brick," Jiang Xuan shouted with a bit of dark humor. Qin Kun had developed a reflexive fear of the word brick. He flinched, instinctively pulling the ancestral projection closer for protection. Qin Lan remained cold, using her Dao artifact to slash a technique toward the incoming Jiang Xuan. The technique landed, but the figure vanished. It was a fake. Qin Lan's face changed instantly. The figure attacking her was a phantom. The real Jiang Xuan was after Qin Kun. Qin Kun's pupils contracted as he saw the glowing human monument flying toward his face. There was no time to react. In a moment of pure instinct, Qin Kun reached out, grabbed Qin Lan, and pulled her in front of him to serve as a shield. A dull thud sounded again. This time, there was a mess. Blood and bone splattered across Qin Kun's face. "Cousin, why?" In her final moments, Qin Lan's face was distorted beyond recognition. She stared at Qin Kun with total disbelief. Qin Kun's eyes were bloodshot and frantic. "You dying is better than me dying." As he spoke, he thrust his hand into her dantian, crushing her Dao foundation and extinguishing the last of her life. He knew that Qin Lan carried a spiritual contract planted by the patriarch. Once she died, it would trigger the contract and summon a projection of the patriarch. That was his only way to be saved. As expected, as Qin Lan died, a supreme light erupted from her body. It pierced through the grotto and tore through the void, forming a deep, illusory tunnel. Bastard! Who dares harm my daughter? A roar from the Qin patriarch, Qin Kongdao, thundered from the other side of the tunnel. Chapter 380, Slaying Qin Qiankun. No one can save you. The projection of Qin Kongdao stepped out from the deep tunnel, 1 foot after the other. Even as a mere imprint of consciousness, he carried supreme power. His terrifying presence surged outward like a tidal wave, crushing everything in its path. The grotto of blessing groaned and cracked under the weight. Fissures spiderwebbed across the space as if it were on the verge of total collapse. An indescribable, divine aura instantly seized control of the battlefield. It was an absolute will. By simply standing there, he dominated the world and everyone within it. Heaven and earth stood still, and the laws of reality froze. It felt as if a giant, invisible hand had pinned everything to the spot. Even Jiang Xuan was no exception, a god-venerable realm expert. Even if this was just a projection, a mere wisp of a physical incarnation, it possessed a terrifying power beyond imagination. The burly figure of Qin Kongdao stood suspended in the void like a supreme deity, holding the power of life and death. His majestic gaze swept across the crowd. The pressure he exerted felt like a divine mountain crashing down, causing hearts to tremble and forcing an uncontrollable urge to kneel and worship. This was absolute suppression, a predator looking down upon prey from a higher plane of existence. Even as a projection, he was a dragon in the clouds, while those below were ants in the dust. Life and death rested entirely upon his whim. Patriarch, Qin Qiankun cried out, instantly shifting into a role of grief. He pointed a finger at Jiang Xuan, his face a mask of sorrow as he accused him before Qin Kongdao. It was this boy? He is despicable and shameless. He knew he could not defeat me in a fair fight, so he launched a cowardly sneak attack from the shadows. I was caught off guard and nearly fell, but my cousin threw herself in front of me to save my life. I never imagined. Qin Qiankun squeezed out 2 lines of tears, his voice cracking with artificial pain. I never imagined she would die at his hands. Patriarch, you must avenge her. Qin Kongdao's expression turned cold. The temperature within the grotto plummeted to the freezing point. His majestic eyes locked onto Jiang Xuan, and a horrifying pressure bore down on the young man. Jiang Xuan's body erupted with cracks, blood spraying from the sudden physical strain. Qin Qiankun knew that a lie this thin might not hold up forever, so he immediately diverted the patriarch's attention. Also, this boy carries the world tree, a supreme divine object. If our Qin family can seize it, we will be invincible within the Kunlun domain in due time. The world tree? Qin Kongdao's expression shifted visibly. He was moved. The onlookers winced at the claim. They had never seen anyone so utterly shameless. They had seen exactly how Qin Lan died. If Qin Qiankun hadn't been so vile as to use his own cousin as a human shield, he would be the one whose head was currently reduced to paste. But no one dared to speak up for justice. At this moment, the truth was irrelevant. Regardless of how Qin Lan actually died, one fact remained. Jiang Xuan possessed the world tree, and that made him a prize in the eyes of the Qin patriarch. An innocent man becomes a criminal the moment he carries a treasure others want. It had always been this way. Nangong Mingde and the elders turned pale. The 4th elder and his companions began to undo their seals, preparing for a desperate, final stand. The true realm of the Qin patriarch was surely beyond that of a true god. Even his projection held peerless power. Their only hope for survival was to sacrifice themselves. The life sprite raised its head, its tiny eyes shimmering with a strange light. Was it finally time for it to act? Master, Old Green is ready. The sprite transmitted. Right then, a thunderous roar shook the area. The grotto of blessing finally gave way. The 4 symbols' heavenly palace shrank rapidly, transforming into a square seal that flew into Jiang Xuan's body. The bronze dragon head sat prominently atop that seal. The geniuses who had been trapped inside the grotto of blessing tumbled out. Unlike the grotto of blessing, which was filled with opportunities and saw few deaths, those forced into the other 3 spaces had fared much worse. Over half had perished. The survivors were covered in blood, nursing heavy injuries. But before they could celebrate their survival, they were pinned by the overwhelming presence of Qin Kongdao. Terror washed over them as they realized the gravity of the situation. How had an old monster like this arrived? Qin Kongdao looked down at Jiang Xuan, his eyes narrowing. He saw the shift in the environment and realized it was all linked to the boy before him. It piqued his interest. How could a genius from a place as lowly as Xuantian possess such a foundation? He didn't just have the world tree. He seemed to hold the secrets of the Earth's sovereign secret realm itself. Interesting. Hand over everything you possess, and I might show mercy and allow you to live, Qin Kongdao said indifferently. His daughter had been his pride, but he had many children. Losing one he favored was a small price to pay if the profit was high enough. Patriarch. Qin Qiankun's face paled. If Jiang Xuan lived, he would be the one in trouble. Jiang Xuan looked up at Qin Kongdao. A smirk played on his lips. Old man, you certainly have a good eye, he mocked. As the words left his mouth, Jiang Xuan summoned the green blade back to his hand. He channeled the power of the Great Dao within the sword and swung a lethal strike directly at Qin Qiankun. Patriarch, save me. Qin Qiankun screamed, his heart racing. The Patriarch's projection was right there. How did this boy dare to strike? How did he have the courage? You brat, how dare you? Qin Kongdao roared. He thrust his right palm downward. Horrifying laws condensed in the air, manifesting as a towering divine mountain that crushed everything below. Space shattered inch by inch. The resulting void turbulence formed a storm that began to erode the world. This supreme pressure created a domain that paralyzed everyone present. The fourth elder and his group were singled out for special attention. They found it difficult to move, let alone break their seals for a final fight. Jiang Xuan felt the same. His movements were slowed to a crawl. However, the human monument trembled, emitting a primal aura that shattered Qin Kongdao's domain suppression. His speed surged as he closed the gap with Qin Qiankun. At the same time, he called out to the life sprite. Now, master, just watch me. The life sprite looked toward Qin Kongdao, waving its claws as it gathered its strength. This was its first official battle for its master, and it intended to win beautifully. It wanted to crush the opponent in a single blow. It was true that the sprite was heavily injured and possessed only a fraction of its power. If a true god venerable were here, it might not be able to guarantee a win. But against a mere projection, it was confident. However, just as the sprite was about to strike, an ancient voice echoed from the deepest reaches of the Earth's sovereign secret realm. It was cold, indifferent, and carried a supreme, unquestionable authority. Junior, you break into my palace and start a fight? You have gone a bit too far, haven't you? The voice boomed like thunder, carrying a weight that felt like the entire world was pressing down. The secret realm itself began to shake violently. Awed by this pressure, Qin Kongdao's projection trembled uncontrollably. His power was instantly suppressed, leaving him frozen in place, unable to move a muscle. His face twisted in shock. Who is this? The life sprite paused, looking toward the depths with surprise in its eyes. He's still alive? On the other side, freed from the shackles of Qin Kongdao's domain, Jiang Xuan's blade reached Qin Qiankun. No, Qin Qiankun roared in terror. He threw out every life-saving treasure and technique he had in a frantic attempt to block the strike. But it was far too late. The human monument hummed, sending out a ripple of primal energy that shattered every one of Qin Qiankun's defenses. The green blade descended like a falling sun. Divine flames splattered and the void vanished. Qin Qiankun was instantly annihilated. Chapter 381. The Qin clan trembles with rage, desiring the death of Jiang Xuan. Witnessing this scene, the crowd stared with bulging eyes and pale faces. Jiang Xuan had actually slain Qin Qiankun? Was he not just a newcomer to the heavenly element realm? How could he kill a Dao Integration Realm expert like Qin Qiankun so easily, and right in front of the projection of the Qin clan patriarch? How could he be this fierce? What kind of freak was he? Bastard! Qin Kongdao roared. Cold, visible fury manifested, shaking heaven and earth. His terrifying presence surged out like a tidal wave, sweeping in all directions like the heavens were collapsing, a true image of doomsday. Yet no matter how he raged, the pressure emanating from the existence in the depths kept him from moving an inch. He could only watch helplessly as Jiang Xuan's sword cut down Qin Qiankun. He could do nothing. Old man, do not be in a hurry. Now it is your turn. After slaying Qin Qiankun, Jiang Xuan turned his head toward Qin Kongdao with a grin. His silhouette blurred as he streaked through the air, charging toward the patriarch. Although he knew the opponent was pinned like meat on a chopping block, Jiang Xuan did not lower his guard. This was, after all, the projection of a god venerable. Jiang Xuan pushed the green peak to its limit, releasing the terrifying edge of a true divine artifact. He layered the domains of his three great Daos, lightning, fire, and the sword, supplemented by the second form of the Great Sun Sword chapter. Lightning, flames, and sword chi annihilated the world. Within the brilliant sun sat an extremely sharp sword edge. Simultaneously, his left hand gripped the human monument, transforming it into a majestic divine mountain to exert absolute suppression. Rumble. Everywhere Jiang Xuan passed, the void collapsed and laws shattered. The sheer level of slaughter far exceeded anything that could be described by the heavenly element realm. The geniuses standing nearby turned pale and retreated frantically, fearing they would be caught in the aftershocks. Even top-tier talents like Yao Wuxian, Lu Fengqi, and Ning Sihai felt their eyes flicker with deep shock. Was this really the heavenly element realm? Qin Kongdao's face was grim. Suppressed by the mysterious powerhouse, he could not move. This projection was destined to perish under the boy's sword. He was a supreme god venerable who dominated the Kunlun domain and was worshipped by billions. To have his projection slain by a child in the heavenly element realm today was a total disgrace. Vile creature. Qin Kongdao stared coldly at Jiang Xuan and hissed, "No matter who you are or what power you represent, to provoke my Qin clan means only death. Prepare to face the fury of the Qin clan." Jiang Xuan gave an indifferent smile. "Old man, you talk too much nonsense." The green peak slashed down as the great sun fell. The void disintegrated and collapsed, returning instantly to nothingness, leaving only the dark turbulence of the void surging like a tide. For 10,000 feet around, the world was annihilated. Qin Kongdao's projection was naturally wiped clean from existence. The entire field was stunned. It was unbelievable. Jiang Xuan had actually slain the projection of a god venerable? What kind of monster was he? Your choice was correct. To the side, the 5 geniuses of the ancient human race gathered. Gu Shintong turned to Lu Fengqi and spoke sincerely. We must make a friend out of Jiang Xuan. The others nodded firmly, the shock on their faces refusing to fade. Jiang Xuan. Yao Wuxian looked like he was learning how to change faces. His expression shifted rapidly through shock, fear, confusion, and murderous intent. Killing Qin Qiankun was one thing. He considered Qin Qiankun a fraud who wasn't worth mentioning. But slaying a god venerable's projection, even with the help of a mysterious suppression, was still too much. That was a god venerable's projection. Perhaps feeling a trace of cowardice and needing to steady his mind, Yao Wuxian summoned the Wuxian spear into his hand. He gripped it tightly, his eyes lowering as a sharp killing intent leaked out. The Wuxian spear was an ultimate weapon of slaughter nurtured by his ancestor. At its peak, it was no less than a saint artifact. Though it had been silent for a long time, and its rank had dropped, with the support of his Wuxian body and bloodline, its power could still crush most true divine artifacts. I must find an opportunity to eliminate Jiang Xuan as soon as possible, or he will become a formidable rival on my path to the Dao, Yao Wuxian thought. Elsewhere, Ming Letian, covered in blood, watched Jiang Xuan from afar. Though he was shocked by Jiang Xuan's strength, he felt no fear. He held a saint inheritance artifact. Killing Jiang Xuan would be easy. Earlier, he had entered the Grotto of Calamity, which was filled with killing formations and only allowed 10 survivors. He had killed half of them himself. He felt that if he kept killing, he might comprehend the supreme sword Dao his master had mentioned, the slaughter sword Dao. I will use your head to help me comprehend the slaughter sword Dao, Ming Letian thought with a slight smile. At that moment, Yang Kong found him. He stared at Ming Letian with a dark expression and whispered, "Give up on your previous ideas. Jiang Xuan and the Jiang clan are not people we can afford to provoke." Ming Letian glanced at Yang Kong, not bothering with words. He drew his sword and slashed. Yang Kong's face changed as he retreated frantically. After narrowly dodging, he glared at Ming Letian. "Have you gone mad? You could actually dodge that?" Ming Letian raised an eyebrow and then gave a disdainful smile. "From this moment on, you are expelled from the pure Yang Sword Palace." Yang Kong was furious and about to roar a curse, but Ming Letian's will locked onto him. The embryonic form of the slaughter sword Dao pressed against Yang Kong. His voice was icy. "I only left you a path to live because you are the reincarnation of the third sword master. Leave now while you still can. If you truly wish to die, I can fulfill that request." "You." Yang Kong's eyes were wide with rage, but the killing intent from the slaughter sword Dao was too terrifying. Even his soul trembled. He realized Ming Letian had made significant progress and truly had the power to kill him. Furthermore, the man would actually do it. "You are something else." Yang Kong laughed in anger and turned to leave. Because Jiang Xuan had slain Qin Qiankun and the god venerable projection, the various geniuses made immediate adjustments. Generally, they followed one rule. Jiang Xuan is not to be provoked. If a grudge had already been formed and was beyond repair, he had to be eliminated as soon as possible. Meanwhile, on a continent across the vast starry sea from Xiantian, in the Kunlun domain, the immortal Qin clan, Qin Kongdao opened his eyes. A cold divine glow shot out, piercing through 10,000 feet of space. His terrifying presence, accompanied by sky-shaking fury, manifested above the Qin clan's divine mountain. Rumble. The heavens and earth shook. Space trembled, and the surrounding 100,000 miles sank under the pressure. Countless living beings felt their hearts shake as if facing death itself. "Order 10 elders to lead 3,000 of our clan's experts to the Xuantian Realm. I want the longevity Jiang clan to be wiped out." Qin Kongdao growled in a low, dark voice. "Patriarch." The Grand Elder, dressed in black robes, flew over and gave a respectful bow. His expression was troubled. "This matter may be impossible to complete for the time being." "What do you mean?" Qin Kongdao turned his eyes toward the Grand Elder, his voice thick with suppressed violence. "Are you disobeying my orders? Please calm your anger, Patriarch." The Grand Elder bowed again and reported, "The Dao sect just sent someone with a Dao war decree." Hearing this, Qin Kongdao's face changed. Much of his anger faded, replaced by a somber gloom. "The Dao war has started again?" The Grand Elder nodded with difficulty. Clearly, the Dao war was something they were extremely reluctant to face. "How has the Dao sect arranged our clan?" Qin Kongdao asked. The Grand Elder gave a bitter smile. "Our Qin clan has been designated as the first combat sequence. They require 70% of our military force to be conscripted for the war." The emotions on Qin Kongdao's face vanished instantly. His spirit seemed to wither. After a long silence, he recovered, his eyes flickering with fury and bitter resentment as he growled. Which grandson is plotting against my Qin clan? Chapter 382. Bringing the Saint Array to destroy the Jiang family. A long silence followed. Qin Kongdao felt a deep sense of internal conflict. His Qin family had no choice but to honor the Dao War decree issued by the Dao sect. After all, their dominance in the Kunlun domain was largely due to the support and backing of the Dao sect. However, the Dao War involved countless lineages from across the entire world, often resulting in millions of casualties. Even experts at the god-venerable level did not dare to claim they could emerge from such a conflict unscathed. Furthermore, the Dao sect had commanded the Qin family to conscript 70% of their military force for this battle, which was an immense challenge. If they succeeded in securing a major first victory for the Dao sect, the profits would be enormous. The rewards from the Dao sect alone would be enough to elevate the Qin family to a higher level of power. But looking back at past Dao wars, many factions stronger than the Qin family had served as the first combat sequence. Even when they won, it was usually a Pyrrhic victory. Most suffered devastating losses, leaving their lineages to wither and decay. Very few managed to maintain their status as overlords. Qin Kongdao's expression shifted several times before he finally let out a long sigh. Assemble the experts of the Qin family, he commanded. Prepare to enter the war. The Grand Elder nodded in response. Understood. Furthermore, we cannot let the longevity Jiang family off the hook, Qin Kongdao added, his eyes narrowing as a cold light flickered within them. Send 3 elders with the saint arrayed diagram. The Jiang family must be wiped out. The elders of the Qin family were all in the heavenly god realm. Sending 3 elders to join the 2 already in the Xuantian Realm would mean 5 heavenly gods operating the diagram together. Patriarch, is it wise to divide our forces now? The Grand Elder asked hesitantly. If some petty rival notices, they might report us to the Dao sect and slander the Qin family's reputation. Go when you are told to go. Qin Kongdao snapped, glaring at the Grand Elder. Since our Qin family has already been chosen for the first combat sequence, who would dare to court trouble by slandering us at a time like this? The Grand Elder lowered his head, unable to argue with the order. He reluctantly accepted the command and turned to leave to arrange the team for the Xuantian Realm. Qin Kongdao stood with his hands behind his back, looking up as his gaze grew deep and a fiery light began to shine in his eyes. A tiny place like Xuantian actually holds the world tree. This is the great opportunity for my Qin family. Jiang Xuan possessed the supreme world tree, a blessing beyond words. If the Qin family could control it in secret and harness its power, they would surely advance further within 10,000 years. Even if they suffered setbacks in the Dao War, the tree would serve as an ultimate safety net. He even felt confident that within 100,000 years, the world tree would help him break through his current bottlenecks and allow him to attain immortality and a saintly seat. When that time came, the Qin family would have a genuine chance to replace the Dao sect itself. Inside the Earth's sovereign secret realm, following Jiang Xuan's display of divine power, the atmosphere had become markedly subtle. Every faction felt a sense of dread and kept their distance from Jiang Xuan's group. Jiang Xuan didn't bother with them. He was busy resting and investigating the mysteries of the 4 Symbols Heavenly Palace. Before he could uncover anything significant, the secret realm began to change. The space where everyone stood had become a chaotic void of unknown direction since the Heavenly Palace recognized Jiang Xuan as its master and flew into his body. Now, brilliant streaks of Dao light shot out from the extreme depths like colorful ribbons, connecting to the space in front of the crowd. The divine light rapidly dispersed and overflowed. Combined with endless rule talismans and Dao patterns, it gradually pieced together a vast and desolate ancient battlefield. Countless phenomena manifested, shifting from illusions into solid forms and creating an incredibly realistic scene of war. Across the field, white bones were piled high, and broken weapons lay scattered everywhere. A never-ending howling wind blew through the area, sounding like the screams and wails of powerful warriors who had died there long ago. What is this? The crowd was startled as they gazed at the ancient battlefield. Was this the next trial of the Earth's sovereign secret realm? Just then, the chaotic sky above turned pitch black. Endless thunderclouds, born from the rules of lightning, rolled in. Thousands of bolts of lightning roared as the aura of destruction poured down like a flood of savage beasts. An infinite number of lightning talismans and inscriptions fell like a torrential rain, crashing into the ancient battlefield. They slowly piled up to form a mysterious, dark purple ancient path. This path acted as a bridge across the middle of the battlefield, splitting it in 2. One end extended to the feet of the crowd, while the other connected to the unmeasurable depths of the realm. The ancient road glowed with the unique, dark purple luster of lightning. A terrifying, cold aura of slaughter surged and pulsed, making the path seem like a prehistoric beast waiting to devour its prey. Along the sides of the road, the corpses of ancient warriors who had died eons ago began to twitch under the infusion of lightning. It was as if they were being granted a new lease on life. Under the shocked gazes of the onlookers, one corpse after another shakily stood up, and climbed onto the lightning path. Like disciplined soldiers following a strict command, they took up positions at their assigned posts. Lightning flickered within their hollow eye sockets as if a new will had been born. Their broken and decayed bodies pulsed with lightning rules, granting them the terrifying power bestowed by that energy. Then, from the far end of the ancient road, that same ancient and majestic divine voice spoke again. Young ones, walk across this ancient path of lightning punishment and come see me. The hearts of the crowd skipped a beat. Walk across the path to see him? Who exactly was he? The Earth Sovereign? Was he not a supreme powerhouse from the primordial era? Had he really survived until now? After the initial shock, the breathing of the various geniuses and prodigies became rapid and heavy. If the Earth's sovereign truly hadn't perished, did that mean walking across this path would grant them an audience with him? Did that mean they had a chance to gain his recognition and inherit his legacy? The inheritance of the Earth's sovereign? Everyone was tempted. Many geniuses didn't even stop to think before they resolutely stepped onto the ancient path of lightning punishment, racing to be the first to reach the end and meet the sovereign. The Earth's sovereign. Nangong Mingde narrowed her eyes, lost in thought. After a brief moment of reflection, she turned to Jiang Xuan. Shall we go in? Jiang Xuan nodded and was about to agree when the voice of the life sprite suddenly rang in his mind. The tone was laced with tension. Master, be careful. This is the ancient path of lightning punishment. Jiang Xuan paused, confused. What do you mean? The life sprite waved its claws, its tiny eyes shimmering with fear. The ancient path of lightning punishment was originally the place where the human immortal court executed the criminals of 10,000 races. Even a saint would find nothing but death here. Chapter 383. Entering the ancient path of lightning punishment. Even a saint would find nothing but death here. Jiang Xuan froze as a wave of alarm washed over him. Was the path truly that dangerous? Tell me more, Jiang Xuan said, his voice dropping into a low, somber tone. The life sprite nodded, its eyes distant as it searched its memory. The ancient path of lightning punishment was originally formed from a primordial lightning pool within the chaos of the universe. It represents the absolute peak of lightning mastery, rivaling the very source of the Great Dao itself. It is said that the path was forged by the laws of the heavens over tens of millions of years. It contains the ultimate power of lightning destruction. Even those in the Saint realm find it nearly impossible to withstand. Later, the human emperor claimed it and transformed it into a place of judgment for the execution of criminals from the 10,000 races. Any foreign power who dared to harm humanity was captured and cast into this path to perish under endless lightning strikes. Many of those executed were at the Saint realm. There is every reason to believe that these corpses were once those foreign masters who were punished and killed here. Then is it even possible to cross? Jiang Xuan asked, his face tightening with concern. Not necessarily, the life sprite replied hesitantly. In that era, the immortal court sat high above the heavens, and this path was governed by specific human experts who enforced the human emperor's will. Today, everything has turned to dust. The immortal court has long since collapsed, and even the human emperor is lost. After being worn down by endless eons, this path should no longer be whole. It likely does not possess that same terrifying level of power anymore. Jiang Xuan nodded thoughtfully. Can you tell what level of energy is contained within this path now? The life sprite considered the question before answering with certainty. It should be below the venerable realm. The voice from the depths is likely the Earth's sovereign. If he summoned this path, his goal clearly is not to execute everyone present. He would naturally control the power of the path to fit a reasonable range. Furthermore, there is a restriction here that only allows those below the venerable realm to enter. I speculate that the power of this path matches that restriction. It will stay just below the power of a venerable. Below the venerable realm, Jiang Xuan repeated. He felt a slight sense of relief. If that was the case, the danger was manageable. He held enough trump cards to ensure the safety of his group. Let us go, Jiang Xuan said calmly. He stepped forward, entering the ancient path of lightning punishment. As he did, the path began to change. The geniuses who had rushed ahead were already being intercepted by the corpses of ancient experts. Fueled by lightning, each corpse erupted with immense strength. They fought with the combat instincts of their former selves, unleashing powerful and ancient divine abilities. Their methods were sharp and their killing intent was cold. Even the top geniuses of the Xuantian Realm found themselves struggling to cope. In a short time, several were wounded. 3 or 4 others had already fallen, dying under the rusted blades of these ancient warriors because of a single moment of inattention. This was no simple trial. It was not a matter of killing a set number of enemies to pass. The corpses intercepted challengers at every step. Even if one cleared the enemies in front of them, more would swarm from behind, offering no room to breathe. Most importantly, the further one traveled, the stronger the corpses became. For the first 1,000 feet, the enemies were at the heavenly element level. After that 1,000-foot mark, their strength jumped to the Dao Integration Realm. Even more staggering was the change after 10,000 feet. Not only did the challengers face increasingly powerful corpses, but they also had to dodge lightning dragons formed from pure laws that crashed down from the heavy clouds above. It felt less like a trial and more like an ordeal by heavenly tribulation. However, as the life sprite predicted, the difficulty was being controlled. The strength of the corpses and the lightning dragons was kept within a logical limit. What the hell? Are they all at the Dao integration stage? Yao Wuxian had fought his way to the 1,000-foot mark, but as he looked at the corpses charging toward him and felt their aura of destruction, he felt his stomach drop. Was this really a test, or was it a trap meant for a massacre? With his cultivation at the peak of the heavenly element stage, he was technically the highest-ranked person present, now that Qin Qiankun and Qin Lan were dead. His position at the front of the pack was proof of that. He relied heavily on the Wuxian spear, using the ancestor's weapon to cut down the lower-level corpses with ease as he moved forward. But Dao integration? This was too much. Who could possibly cross this? Yao Wuxian's expression flickered. Looking at the crowd of Dao integration corpses, his scalp tingled and his heart pounded. Driven by the fear of death, he had no choice but to retreat back behind the 1,000-foot line. As if following a specific rule, the moment Yao Wuxian stepped back, the corpses immediately retracted their divine abilities and stood still. Yao Wuxian stood there, staring at the 100 or so Dao integration enemies before him, feeling completely helpless. He had led the pack and reached this point first, only to be blocked just as the end was in sight. It was a miserable situation. The corpses blocked the way with lethal intent, yet the people present were the finest geniuses and prodigies of their generation. It was inevitable that others would fight their way to the 1,000-foot mark as well. Ming Litian arrived, followed by Zhao Fuyao, Luo Xinglan, and the 5 geniuses of the ancient human race led by Lu Fengqi. Whether fast or slow, they all eventually reached the same bottleneck. They wondered why Yao Wuxian had stopped, but they soon found out for themselves. As they pushed forward, they were met by the overwhelming pressure of the Dao integration corpses. One by one, they shouted in shock and scrambled back to the safety of the 1,000-foot line. An hour later, Jiang Xuan and his group finally arrived. Yao Wuxian and the others turned their eyes toward Jiang Xuan. "Ho, everyone made it here quite fast," Jiang Xuan said with a chuckle. "Humph," Ming Litian snorted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "We were certainly faster than you." "Ah, so you are a fast man. My apologies for the disrespect," Jiang Xuan replied with a grin. Though he did not fully understand the slang, Ming Litian could tell Jiang Xuan was mocking him. His face turned icy as he glared at the young man. "If you want to die, I can make it happen right now. You only ever say the same old trash. Can you not find something new?" Jiang Xuan laughed. He ignored the threat and led Nangong Mingde and the others forward, stepping out of the safe zone. In an instant, the lightning in the eyes of the Dao integration corpses flared with a cold, murderous light. Ming Litian felt his mood lift immediately, and he began to sneer. Did Jiang Xuan really think that because he killed a fraud like Qin Qiankun, he had the strength to crush true Dao integration power? This was a whole pack of them. He waited to see how they would fail. Yao Wuxian also let out a long breath. He felt his internal frustration begin to dissipate. A cold smile touched his lips. If Jiang Xuan died here, it would save him the trouble of doing it himself. Luo Xinglan and Lu Fengqi looked on with concern. They knew Jiang Xuan was strong, but facing this many enemies at once seemed impossible. Yet in the next heartbeat, everyone was left speechless and staring in disbelief. Jiang Xuan and his group simply strolled forward, walking right past the corpses that were radiating terrifying power. The ancient warriors did not move. They did not react at all. They just walked right past them. The crowd was paralyzed with shock. Chapter 384. Brother Jiang leads the way. What is happening? The crowd stood frozen in disbelief. It made no sense. When they moved forward, these ancient corpses fought with suicidal fury, yet they treated Jiang Xuan as if he were invisible. It was not as if Jiang Xuan was related to these long-dead warriors. Nangong Mingde and her companions were equally stunned. They knew Jiang Xuan was somehow immune to the corpses, but now that protection had extended to them as well. They were all enjoying a safe passage. Just how many secrets was Jiang Xuan hiding? See that? Following the young master means turning calamity into good fortune. It is just a typical Tuesday for us, Jiang Chen said, patting Nangong Fengtian on the shoulder with a boastful grin. Nangong Fengtian stared at Jiang Xuan and nodded in deep agreement. He leaned in and whispered to Jiang Chen, "Brother, we are practically family. You have to look out for me from now on." As he spoke, he discreetly pressed a storage ring into Jiang Chen's hand. Jiang Chen swept the ring with his divine sense, tucked it away, and beamed. "Do not worry. With me covering you, you will save yourself 10 years of hard detours." Seeing the ancient corpses remain motionless, Jiang Xuan felt a wave of relief. There was definitely a factor in this ancient path of lightning punishment that he did not fully understand, something that allowed him to pass unimpeded and even shield his followers. He had noticed hints of this during the first 1,000 feet, but it had been subtle then. Back then, the heavenly element corpses simply avoided him. They had not reached this state of total stillness where even those standing next to him were ignored. Does the Earth Sovereign know my Jiang clan ancestor? Jiang Xuan reached out to the life sprite with his theory. The sprite considered it for a moment. They were both supreme powerhouses in the human immortal court, second only to the human emperor himself. They certainly knew each other. As for their personal relationship, Old Green has no idea. That level of social circle was far beyond my reach. Jiang Xuan nodded thoughtfully. He turned back, ignoring the glaring eyes of Ming Litian and Yao Wuxian. Instead, he looked toward Luo Xinglan, Zhao Fuyao, and the 5 geniuses of the ancient human race led by Lu Fengqi. Join us, he invited. Luo Xinglan nodded without hesitation and stepped out of the safe zone. Zhao Fuyao hesitated for a second before following. Lu Fengqi and his 4 companions flashed genuine smiles of gratitude. Making a friend of Brother Jiang was proving to be the best decision they had ever made. The result was the same. The lines of ancient corpses stood like statues, showing no reaction as the group passed them by. Thank you, my lord, the others said, bowing or nodding to Jiang Xuan in turn. We are friends. No need for such formality, Jiang Xuan laughed. Nangong Mingde glanced at Luo Xinglan and Zhao Fuyao with narrowed eyes, but said nothing. Meanwhile, Luo Xinglan and Zhao Fuyao were casting strange looks at Lu Fengqi's group, their minds racing with unspoken thoughts. Lu Fengqi noticed the tension and felt a chill, but he braced himself and acted as if nothing were wrong. With such a diverse group gathered together, the atmosphere became quite peculiar. Xiao Hong, this Jiang Xuan is actually quite interesting, Fei Xin said, nudging Jiang Hong with her elbow. Her bright eyes sparkled with mischief. Jiang Hong kept his eyes closed, his expression unchanging. He gave a slight nod. Jiang Xuan is a man of great destiny. Nothing about him can be judged by common logic. I was not talking about that. Fei Xin rolled her eyes and pointed toward Nangong Mingde, Luo Xinglan, and Zhao Fuyao. A battlefield of the heart. Can you not see it? Jiang Hong remained calm. Nothing about Jiang Xuan can be judged by common logic. TCH, Fei Xin pouted. You are so boring. In the safe zone, Ming Litian and the others were even more bewildered. It was one thing for Jiang Xuan to be fine, but why were Luo Xinglan and the others also being ignored by the corpses? Could it be that these corpses have finally gone dormant? Yao Wuxian wondered aloud. He suspected the path had simply become safe, as it was the only explanation that didn't involve everyone being related to ancient zombies. The other geniuses began to share the sentiment. However, the memory of the previous brutal slaughter was still fresh, making them hesitate to test the waters. See, Jiang Xuan is not someone to be trifled with. Yang Kong approached Ming Litian, his voice low and urgent. This boy is born with immense luck and destiny. You should befriend him, not make him an enemy. Even if you do not become close like Luo Xinglan did, you absolutely must not offend him. It will bring no benefit to you or the pure Yang Sword Palace. Logically, Yang Kong should have ignored Ming Litian and let him meet his fate. But Ming Litian was the sword seed of the palace. Yang Kong could ignore the man, but he could not ignore the institution. If Ming Litian truly crossed Jiang Xuan, the entire pure Yang Sword Palace would suffer. As the reincarnation of the third sword master, Yang Kong viewed the palace as his home and could not stand by and watch it burn. Get lost. Ming Litian didn't waste words. He drew his sword and forced Yang Kong back with a strike. He then snorted coldly. The ancient path of lightning punishment is clearly safe now. Anyone can pass. Jiang Xuan just happened to get the timing right. With that, Ming Litian stepped out of the safe zone. Seeing him go, the others followed. They were already convinced it was safe, and with someone else leading the way, their doubts vanished. They crossed the 1,000-foot mark. The ancient corpses did not move. They walked a bit further, and still, there was no reaction. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, smiles spreading across their faces. It really was safe. Huh, I told you Jiang Xuan was just lucky. Ming Litian sneered, picking up his pace. The others did the same, moving as fast as they could. But halfway through, specifically, just as Jiang Xuan's group crossed the 10,000-foot threshold, the situation changed. The hollow eyes of the ancient corpses suddenly flared with cold, murderous light. Lightning crackled. The interception had begun again. What the hell? Ming Litian and his followers were stunned. How could the rules keep flipping back and forth? There was no time for questions. They were forced to unleash their techniques to survive. They were halfway through the path. There was no retreating now. They had already tasted the power of these Dao Integration corpses. If they did not use their ultimate life-saving trump cards, they would die here today. Ming Litian and the others were losing their minds, cursing internally. Why did Jiang Xuan get a free pass for the whole trip while they were ambushed halfway? It was completely unfair. Despite their rage, they had to swallow their bitterness and pull out their hidden treasures one by one. Ancient talismans, tattered artifacts, and precious divine items were hurled into the fray. A tragic and chaotic battle erupted on that stretch of the ancient road. On the other side, Jiang Xuan's group reached the 10,000-foot mark. They turned back to watch the carnage with various expressions, though they all shared a new level of respect for Jiang Xuan. Without him, they would be right in the middle of that mess. Facing a swarm of Dao integration corpses was a gamble with death. Brother Jiang, I will not say much more. If you ever need anything, just ask. The five of us will never say no, Lu Fengqi promised with absolute sincerity. Chapter 385. Ancient Road Lightning Tribulation delivered to the door. Damn it. He let them beat him to it. Nangong Fengtian cursed under his breath in annoyance. How could he have forgotten to express his gratitude to young Master Jiang and use the opportunity to build a closer bond? Jiang Xuan let out a disdainful smirk. Brother, you just don't get it. They are outsiders, so they need to make a formal statement. We are his own people. There is no need for all that hollow posturing between us. Nangong Fengtian froze for a moment. He instinctively glanced at Nangong Mingde and thought about her relationship with Jiang Xuan. No matter how you looked at it, Jiang Xuan was practically half a member of the Nangong clan. Calling themselves his own people was perfectly accurate. Once he realized this, Nangong Fengtian broke into a grin. The look he cast toward Lu Fengqi and the others now held a hint of smugness. That is right. They are outsiders, but I am one of his own. Our statuses are completely different. On the other side, Luo Xinglan watched silently without saying much. Perhaps sensing something, she was deliberately maintaining a distance from Jiang Xuan. It was true that she wanted to show her favor to the sovereign, but in the memories of her past life, Nangong Mingde was also a supreme powerhouse who stood above the Xuantian Realm. She was someone to be befriended, not offended. Therefore, keeping her distance to avoid putting the sovereign in a difficult position while making Nangong Mingde feel at ease was the best choice. Zhao Fuyao did not have such complicated thoughts. She noticed the subtle dynamics, but did not care. Her mind was entirely focused on chasing the peak of the Great Dao. Romantic entanglements were not within her scope of consideration. Meanwhile, Jiang Xuan enjoyed the show for a while. Ming Letian, Yao Wuxian, and their lot were still struggling miserably to hold off the ancient corpses. After watching for a bit, he started to feel bored and turned his gaze toward the next section of the ancient path of lightning punishment. Thunderclouds gathered densely, lightning raged wildly, and lightning dragons roared within the mist. A terrifying aura pulsed through the air, enough to make one's heart skip a beat. It seemed that from this point forward, the true ancient path of lightning punishment began. Master, be careful. This is the core of the ancient path. It simulates the order of heaven and earth to call down heavenly tribulations. Many of the powerhouses from the 10,000 races who were captured met their end under this very lightning punishment, the life sprite warned. Jiang Xuan narrowed his eyes, but did not worry too much. After all, he had clearly been enjoying member status all the way here. Besides, when it came to heavenly tribulations, he had plenty of experience. Without hesitation, Jiang Xuan stepped forward. Rumble. The deep thunderclouds seemed to boil, shifting rapidly. Lightning tore through the sky as a wave of destructive aura surged downward like a crushing ocean. The sheer power was apocalyptic, weighing on everyone's hearts until they could hardly breathe. A heavenly tribulation. The crowd cried out in disbelief. After the 10,000-foot mark, a tribulation actually descended? This was insane. Normally, a heavenly tribulation only appeared as a test when a venerable broke through to the void god realm. Could Jiang Xuan actually cross this successfully? The sovereign has experience with tribulations. It will surely be no problem, Luo Xinglan said firmly. She directed her gaze toward the worried Nangong Mingde, clearly speaking to reassure her. I can use this as an opportunity to observe and learn, Gu Shintong thought to himself. He also possessed king's blood, and every time his realm broke through, he was plagued by tribulations. Previously, he had only barely survived by relying on the powerhouses of his clan. Through Brother Jiang, he might find a better way to overcome the lightning using only his own strength during his next breakthrough. Hey, Xiaohong, shouldn't you warn Jiang Xuan to be a bit more careful? Fei Xian nudged Jiang Hong with her elbow and whispered, "This is the ancient path of lightning punishment. Its tribulation is extraordinary. It is no different from a divine punishment. Even a saint would most likely perish here." Jiang Hong remained expressionless. Trust Jiang Xuan. The tribulation here is unusual, but he is no ordinary man either. TCH, Fei Xian pouted. Always so arrogant. At this time, Ming Letian and the others finally broke free from the swarm of corpses and reached the 10,000-foot mark with great difficulty. It was worth noting that not many had survived the crossing. Only about 20 or 30 people. Most of the others had fallen forever along the way. Furthermore, everyone was covered in blood and scars, their breathing ragged. It was obvious they had suffered significant injuries. Nangong Mingde and the others glanced at them briefly before ignoring them. Their attention was entirely on Jiang Xuan. Worried for his safety, they had no desire to kick their enemies while they were down. Seeing this, Ming Letian and Yao Wuxian felt a slight sense of relief. They lowered their guard slightly and took out healing pills and spiritual herbs to begin recovering. However, they still kept a portion of their focus on their surroundings and on Jiang Xuan, who had gone ahead to face the tribulation. They wanted to see just how powerful this lightning was and if they had any chance of crossing it themselves. But as they watched, their jaws dropped. They stood up abruptly, staring blankly, completely forgetting their wounds. Is this supposed to be a heavenly tribulation? You have to be joking. Jiang Xuan actually flashed forward and charged directly into the thunderclouds. He sat down cross-legged right in the center of the thousands of lightning dragons. His immortal lightning body activated, and a divine glow of lightning shimmered around him. Waves of mysterious fluctuations spread out from his body. A domineering power of devouring suddenly erupted, like the gaping maw of a Taotai, consuming everything in its vicinity. The lightning dragons roared in fury. This was their territory. This person was acting so recklessly. Did he really think he was the master here? The dragons lunged toward Jiang Xuan, carrying bolts of thunder with them. Buzz! An indescribable aura suddenly rose from Jiang Xuan's body. The human monument, the world tree seedling, and the phantom of reincarnation all trembled, forming an unutterable weight of suppression. The moment the lightning dragons reached Jiang Xuan, they jerked to a halt, frozen in place as if shackled, unable to move another inch. Crack, crunch. The sound of chewing appeared out of thin air. The thousands of lightning dragons began to disappear at a rate visible to the naked eye. Tiny bolts of lightning began to sprout around Jiang Xuan's body like spiritual snakes, coiling and dancing wildly. With the help of his many treasures, Jiang Xuan completely ignored the destructive power of the tribulation. He looked extremely content as he devoured the dragons, digesting the lightning laws contained within them. 1, 2, 3. Within the raging clouds, Jiang Xuan devoured the dragons with great relish. It was just like the scene back in the true God's secret realm. Taking advantage of a heavenly tribulation was something he was very familiar with. The power of this tribulation was indeed much greater because of the ancient path, but with his various supreme treasures, it didn't really affect him. The ancient path of lightning punishment lived up to its reputation as a treasure of the lightning source. The tribulation it produced was many times higher in quality than any he had faced before. The dragons contained pure lightning laws. After devouring and refining them, his lightning realm improved directly. He did not even need to spend time digesting or contemplating the insights. This is good stuff. Jiang Xuan was secretly overjoyed. He had only swallowed about a dozen dragons, and his lightning realm had already reached the late stage of the Dao domain. What did that mean? When he broke through to the heavenly element realm, he had used ancestor Jiang Qiankun's method to pluck the tribulation's wool until it was nearly bald, and that only took him from the early to the middle stage of the Dao domain. Energized and full of drive, Jiang Xuan increased the speed of his devouring. The people below, however, were now completely speechless. Was this really a tribulation? Gu Shintong. Was it like this when you faced your tribulation? Lu Fengqi asked. Gu Shintong was the only one present with actual experience. Gu Shintong said nothing. Like hell it was. What kind of normal person charges into the clouds to eat the lightning dragons? He remembered his own experience, being blasted until his skin was torn and his flesh was scorched, needing countless spirit medicines just to heal his body. In comparison, Gu Shintong fell into an even deeper silence. What exactly was he supposed to observe and learn here? He couldn't learn this if his life depended on it. Actually, he wouldn't even dare to try. Chapter 386. Mastering the Power of Lightning. Nangong Mingde felt her heart settle as she watched the scene. A small smile appeared on her face. She realized she had simply been worrying too much. Given the sheer depth of Jiang Xuan's strength, how could a mere heavenly tribulation pose any real danger to him? Just then, Jiang Zhao stirred and slowly woke up. Perhaps due to her rising strength, the massive energy from the divine statues she had consumed was digesting rapidly. In just a few hours, the power had been almost entirely refined and converted into her own cultivation. The young girl rubbed her sleepy eyes and instinctively looked up at the thunderclouds. When she saw Jiang Xuan sitting right in the middle of the storm, her eyes went wide. She wondered if she was still dreaming. "Mother, is that Daddy?" Jiang Zhao asked, turning to Nangong Mingde. "Yes, he is facing a tribulation," Nangong Mingde replied with a smile. A loud cry escaped Jiang Zhao as she snapped fully awake. Under Nangong Mingde's confused gaze, the little girl pointed a finger at Jiang Xuan and complained with puffy cheeks. "Mother, Daddy is eating all the good stuff by himself again." Nangong Mingde had not expected this reaction at all. She thought the girl would be proud of her father. She could only offer a helpless smile. Like father, like daughter. This is completely unfair. Below, the various geniuses and prodigies felt a pang of frustration in their hearts. This was supposed to be a heavenly tribulation. Not only was Jiang Xuan completely unharmed, but he was actually devouring the lightning to boost his own strength. One last time, Yang Kong walked over to Ming Litian once again. His face was dark as he stared at the young man, delivering a cold warning. "I strongly advise you to drop your petty schemes. Jiang Xuan is not someone you can provoke. Our pure Yang Sword Palace cannot afford your reckless behavior." Ming Litian had reached his limit. A cold, murderous intent flared in his eyes as his slaughter sword Dao manifested. Crimson sword Qi shot into the high heavens. "Since you have sought death time and time again, I will grant your wish." With a hum of power, he slashed downward. The blood-colored sword Qi split the air, falling straight toward Yang Kong. Yang Kong's expression shifted slightly as he retreated rapidly. Pure yang sword chi shielded his body, allowing him to dodge the strike. He stared coldly at Ming Litian and laughed in pure anger. Fine. Very well. Ming Litian, just you wait. Yang Kong turned and vanished into the depths of the ancient path of lightning punishment. He had tried 3 times to warn him, but Ming Litian remained deaf to reason. The man was beyond saving. For the sake of himself and the pure Yang Sword Palace, Yang Kong decided he could not let Ming Litian leave this secret realm alive. He needed to find a quiet place to practice a secret method from his previous life. He would force his strength to rise and then settle things with Ming Litian. At his current level, it was truly difficult to face Ming Litian while the latter held a saint inheritance artifact. The fierce conflict between the two was noted by the other factions, but no one paid it much mind. In truth, every genius was currently hesitating over how to handle their relationship with Jiang Xuan. The boy was far too monstrous. No normal person faced a tribulation this way. He defied all logic. They had entered this realm to seek opportunities and prepare for the coming era. They were ready to compete and even die in battle. However, Jiang Xian's presence had shattered their expectations. Dying in a fight for a treasure was one thing, but Jiang Xian clearly stood on a level far above them. To headbutt someone like him was simply seeking death. The drive to compete began to fade among the various groups. The desire to lead the pack was no longer so strong. Of course, Yao Wuxian was the exception. Holding the Wuxian spear gave him immense confidence. He could kill those in the Dao Integration Realm and dared to fight even a venerable. Jiang Xian was strange, but he had not reached the point where Yao Wuxian would back down. The more monstrous you appear, the more determined I am to eliminate you, Yao Wuxian whispered, his eyes deep and fixed on the clouds. There are only a few seats at the peak of the Great Dao. There is no room for 2 of us. In the sky, Jiang Xian was draped in flickering lightning. The aura of destruction surged around him as violent lightning rules churned. His realm was climbing at an incredible speed. The lightning dragons were disappearing visibly, consumed as fuel for his growth. Even the thick thunderclouds covering the sky seemed to grow thin. Jiang Xian opened his eyes slightly. Sensing his realm was still within the Dao domain level, he felt a bit dissatisfied. This is too slow. I need to use the method of Ancestor Jiang Changshu. After a moment of thought, he shifted his strategy. He activated his immortal lightning body and summoned a lightning clone. The clone stepped toward the circling dragons while holding the human monument. The massive clone swung the monument with broad, powerful strokes, creating a storm of primal energy. In an instant, the dragons were shattered into pure lightning law energy. Jiang Xian then called forth the world tree. The seedling swayed its tender leaves, gathering the chaotic energy and organizing it before channeling it steadily into Jiang Xian's body. The phantom of reincarnation rotated slowly, refining every drop of that energy. Finally, Jiang Xian devoured and integrated it into his own path. His speed increased more than tenfold. It has to be the ancestors' way. Standardized, processed, and highly efficient. Jiang Xian smiled to himself. The geniuses below were stunned into silence. They wondered if such a thing was even allowed. Yao Wuxian watched with a turbulent heart, his grip tightening on his spear. In the deepest part of the Earth's sovereign secret realm, an ancient voice whispered in surprise. Oh, that method is quite interesting. As expected of his successor, Jiang Xian continued to refine the energy with peak efficiency. His lightning realm soared. Soon, the great Dao of lightning manifested as a physical presence. Tiny bolts of lightning hovered around him as if traveling through the void, their deep glow pulsing. The aura of destruction grew more majestic and terrifying by the second. Half an hour later, a sound like the roar of a divine beast erupted from within Jiang Xian's body. The entire ancient path of lightning punishment went dark for a moment. The few remaining lightning dragons trembled violently before shattering into pure energy. The deep clouds covering the sky suddenly contracted and swirled inward toward the center. In a final, breathtaking sight, the tribulation clouds condensed into a pool of flickering lightning liquid that flowed directly into Jiang Xian's body. Jiang Xian opened his eyes. He withdrew his treasures into his body. The lightning flickering around him vanished, and everything returned to normal. But everyone knew this was not the end. Jiang Xian slowly reached out and made a grasping motion toward the sky. Thousands of massive lightning bolts descended like dragons, blanketing the entire ancient path. The world was transformed into a lightning prison fit for gods and demons. And Jiang Xian stood there as the supreme deity in control of that prison. By devouring the entire tribulation, Jiang Xian had finally pushed his lightning realm into the terrifying stage of great Dao power. This was a domain usually reserved for void gods and fully mastered only by true gods. Yet today, Jiang Xian had achieved it while still in the heavenly element realm. Chapter 387. Earth Sovereign? There is no Earth Sovereign here. The power of the Great Dao. Silence fell over everyone present. A long-lasting shock took root in their hearts, leaving them unable to steady their emotions. To master the power of the Great Dao while only at the heavenly element realm, even among the legendary figures throughout history, Such a feat was virtually unheard of. Are we truly witnessing history today? Lu Fengqi could not help but cry out in shock. Gu Shintong and the others nodded in deep agreement. When they first emerged from the Forbidden Life Zone, they carried the weight of a mission to be invincible in this generation and lead the human race toward a great revival. But after these successive experiences, that ambition had faded significantly. Jiang Xuan stood before them like an impassable mountain. They were destined never to reach the peak of invincibility. Furthermore, Jiang Xuan possessed the king's blood and held the human monument. He had a far greater chance of becoming a young king and revitalizing humanity than any of them. We may need to return and discuss things with the old men back home, Qin Wuji said calmly to his four companions. Lu Fengqi and the others exchanged glances. They understood exactly what Qin Wuji meant, but making that choice would require a great deal of courage. They still needed time to process and adapt to this reality. Luo Xinglan's eyes shimmered with a deep blue light, her heart filled with excitement. She had once again witnessed a pivotal moment in the sovereign rise. She grew more certain that he could save the desolate Heaven sect from its ultimate catastrophe. Her only concern now was how to further demonstrate her loyalty and goodwill so that she could easily make her request when the time came. Heavenly element realm, yet mastering lightning at the Dao level. Zhao Fuyao's eyes narrowed slightly, stars swirling within her pupils. A flicker of shock remained as she whispered to herself, Jiang Xuan, is there anything you cannot do? Beyond the shock, she felt a surge of anticipation. Perhaps before long, she would see Jiang Xuan figure at the very summit. When that time came, they would surely have the chance to sit and discuss the peak of cultivation together. As expected of this great age, it is exceptionally brilliant. Zhao Fuyao's heart swelled with passion. Yao Wuxian gripped the Wuxian spear tightly, his face ashen. His eyes were full of horror and dread. No matter how much he tried to wrap his mind around it, he never imagined that someone at the heavenly element realm could push their lightning comprehension to the level of great Dao power. This was a domain that usually could only be touched by those in the void god realm. Even with his own peak talent, he had only reached the middle stage of the martial domain, which was already enough to suppress nearly every other prodigy present. Jiang Xuan. What a Jiang Xuan. Yao Wuxian ground his teeth, the pressure on his heart becoming immense. The talent and strength Jiang Xuan displayed grew more monstrous with every encounter. He had to admit that even while wielding his ancestor weapon, he now lacked the confidence to claim victory. His Yao family had ended millions of years of seclusion to help him seize the chance for enlightenment in this era. So why was his luck so poor as to run into someone like Jiang Xuan? Must I live my entire life in the shadow of Jiang Xuan? Yao Wuxian screamed internally, his heart full of resentment. The malice and bitterness within him grew more intense by the second. At that moment, Jiang Xuan descended from the sky. The clouds had been entirely consumed, leaving the heavens clear. The dangers and mysteries of the ancient path of lightning punishment had vanished along with the storm, leaving only a gray stone path leading into the deepest parts of the secret realm. As Jiang Xuan landed, Lu Fengqi, Zhao Fuyao, and the others stepped forward to offer their congratulations. Jiang Zhao pounced directly onto him, her face pulled into a pout of dissatisfaction. Daddy, you found something delicious again, and you did not bring me along. Jiang Xuan laughed and rubbed her head. Next time for sure. He then turned to Nangong Mingde and asked with a grin, well, is your husband handsome or what? Nangong Mingde gave him a small smile and nodded. Very handsome. Jiang Xuan's smile widened. In this moment, the joy of mastering lightning felt secondary to that single compliment. Come on, let us go see what this Earth's sovereign secret realm is all about. Jiang Xuan waved his hand and led the group toward the depths. Only after Jiang Xuan and his party moved did the other geniuses dare to follow. To put it simply, Jiang Xuan's status was now so high that if he did not sit at the table, no one else dared to pick up their chopsticks. As they emerged from the ancient path, it felt as though they had traveled through the void into another small world. The sight that greeted them left everyone stunned. There was a sense of jarring misplaced reality in what they saw. Green mountains, clear waters, and curls of cooking smoke rising in the distance. A crisp stream flowed from a nearby hill, winding its way through the landscape. A weathered stone bridge arched over the water. On one side lay several acres of fertile farmland where golden crops gave off the sweet scent of a rich harvest. A few people dressed in simple hemp clothing were bent over in the fields, harvesting the grain. Occasionally, they straightened up to stretch, wiping sweat from their brows with joyful smiles on their rough faces. Beneath the stone bridge by the stream, several women were washing clothes while chatting. Their silver laughter rang out as they shared stories. Behind the women, on the other side of the bridge, was a cluster of neatly arranged thatched huts. In front of the huts stood a lush, green scholar tree. Beneath its shade, several children were chasing each other, laughing and playing. The crowd watched this peaceful, tranquil scene with total confusion. A faint sense of unease began to rise. These people had absolutely no cultivation. They were true, ordinary mortals. In the outside world, such a hidden paradise would be unremarkable. But this was the Earth Sovereign's secret realm. This was supposed to be the palace of the Earth Sovereign. How could mortals exist here? How strange. Jiang Zhao chewed on her finger, looking at the farmers and then at the children playing under the tree. Those children looked to be about her age, but she wondered why they seemed so childish to her. Be careful, Nangong Mingde warned in a low voice. Jiang Xuan nodded. He looked toward the people working in the fields, intending to ask them for information. But before he could speak, Yao Wuxian took a step forward. He used his power to pull an old man out of the field, grabbing him by the neck. He demanded in a cold voice, "Where is this place? And where is the inheritance of the Earth Sovereign?" The old man looked terrified. This is Great Scholar Village. Earth Sovereign? What Earth Sovereign? I do not know. The people in the fields were terrified by the sight. They had never seen someone who could fly in the sky. You had better not be lying to me. Yao Wuxian snorted coldly. He tossed the old man back and glared at the row of thatched huts, his face full of violence. The Earth's sovereign inheritance was his only chance to surpass Jiang Xuan. For that chance, he was willing to use any means necessary. The other geniuses frowned, feeling a sense of distaste, but they said nothing. The place was strange, and while Yao Wuxian's actions were unethical, they were not entirely illogical in this environment. Jiang Xuan, however, felt his gaze turn cold. He disliked this behavior. The scene reminded him of things he would rather not remember. Furthermore, it was indeed time to deal with Yao Wuxian once and for all. Jiang Xuan took a step forward, lightning beginning to spark in his palm. But just as he was about to strike, a flash of light pierced the void. The Wuxian spear had flown out of its own accord. It pierced Yao Wuxian's brow, pinning him into the empty air. Great Scholar Village. No violence allowed. The great scholar tree in front of the huts swayed gently, and an ancient, heavy voice echoed in everyone's hearts. Chapter 388. Slaying Yao Wuxian. The light faded from Yao Wuxian's eyes, leaving only a chilling reflection of his terror and a silent protest against the unfairness of fate. Why? The question lingered in his dying mind. Why was Jiang Xuan's path so effortless while he was pinned here like a common beast? What had he done wrong? With the Wuxian spear driven deep into his brow, Yao Wuxian could not struggle or resist. He could only watch as his life force drained into the void and his consciousness was swallowed by an encroaching darkness. A moment later, the last flicker of his vitality vanished into the wind. Yao Wuxian was dead. The spectators felt a collective shiver. They stared blankly at the body suspended in the air, their hearts pounding with a shock they could not settle. This was Yao Wuxian, the paramount genius of the longevity Yao family. His clan had ended their long isolation specifically to champion his rise, intending for him to dominate this era and reach the peak of the Great Dao. The importance the Yao family placed on him was immense. Beyond his lineage, Yao Wuxian possessed genuine, top-tier talent. Between his peak heavenly element cultivation, his martial god physique, and the ancestral spear in his hand, he had stood above nearly everyone present. There may have been a gap between him and Jiang Xuan, but that did not change the fact that he was the most likely candidate to claim the destiny of this age. Yet, such a formidable figure had died so abruptly. The death felt almost too casual, and it left the other geniuses with a hollow sense of their own mortality. If even someone as powerful as Yao Wuxian could fall so suddenly, what hope was there for them? Their lifelong pursuit of the Dao could end in an instant, leaving nothing but dust. The atmosphere grew somber and heavy. Among the crowd, Ming Lishan's reaction was the most visceral. His face went pale as a cold dread crept up his spine. Yao Wuxian was gone. What would his own end look like? Since entering the Earth Sovereign's secret realm, every genius who had fallen to something other than the realm's inherent traps, like Qin Qiankun or Yao Wuxian, shared one common thread. They had made an enemy of Jiang Xuan. Every single one of them was dead. The realization sat heavy in Ming Lishan's stomach. Was he the only one left? His expression darkened with unease. He tightened his grip on his Saint Inheritance artifact, drawing strength from its cold metal. This was his shield. With a Saint weapon in hand, he told himself he could still kill Jiang Xuan regardless of what accidents might occur. Yang Kong's warnings echoed in his mind, but he refused to listen. He would not admit he was wrong. No matter how many tricks Jiang Xuan had, the boy could not overcome a Saint-level weapon. Then, the ancient voice of the scholar tree echoed once more in their minds. Those of the Jiang family may stay. The rest of you leave. It was a blunt, final eviction. The onlookers exchanged glances, their eyes shifting toward Jiang Xuan. They had seen the strange occurrences on the path of lightning punishment and had suspected Jiang Xuan was the chosen one, but they had clung to their faint hopes. The scholar tree's command shattered those illusions. Though they were mentally prepared, the rejection stung. They had risked their lives to reach this point, only to serve as background characters for Jiang Xuan's story. This feeling of being a mere bystander left these proud geniuses with a deep sense of frustration. Congratulations, Brother Jiang. Lu Fengqi and his companions were graceful in defeat. They bowed to Jiang Xuan and then turned to leave, following the invisible pull of the realm's exit. Ming Litian did not wait a second longer. He turned and fled as if his life depended on it. With the inheritance out of reach, he knew that staying would likely result in him meeting the same fate as Yao Wuxian. Green mountains do not change, and clear waters flow on. He told himself he would have plenty of opportunities to repay this humiliation. With his early mastery of the slaughter sword Dao and a saint weapon in his possession, he believed his future was just as bright as Jiang Xian's. The other geniuses sighed, accepting that the trial was over for them, and began to depart one by one. Congratulations, my lord. Luo Xinglan bowed before sending a private message. I hope that after this journey, you will visit the desolate heavens sect. We have made every preparation. The great Luo Holy Land must fall. Jiang Xian nodded slightly. Rest assured, when the time is right, I will be there to help. Thank you. Luo Xinglan hesitated before turning to Nangong Mingde. Miss Nangong, if you are willing, I can pledge on behalf of the Desolate Heaven sect to form an alliance with the Great Gan Empire. We will stand or fall together with you. She did not understand why the memory of Nangong Mingde destroying this realm with a single finger had not come to pass, but she saw no reason not to extend an olive branch. The timeline had shifted, and to her, that was a good sign. It meant the fate of her sect could also be changed. Nangong Mingde looked at Luo Xinglan with surprise and gave a slight nod. Thank you for your kindness. If I take the throne of Great Gan, the Desolate Heaven sect will be our eternal ally. Satisfied, Luo Xinglan smiled and took her leave. Zhao Fuyao approached Jiang Xian next. After this, I will enter seclusion to fully refine my true self and strike for the true God realm. If all goes well, it will take 10 years at most. I hope that in 10 years, I can face you in a true battle to validate my own path. Jiang Xian blinked, a flash of surprise in his eyes. Breaking through to the true God realm within 10 years. Such confidence. Could I reach the true God realm in 10 years? He reflected on the question and suddenly laughed at his own self-doubt. With his current foundations, 10 years was more than enough. Months ago, when his bloodline curse left him with only 3 years to live, his goal had been to reach the true God realm in that time. He realized he was thinking too small. Jiang Xian shook his head with a smile and looked at Zhao Fuyao. As you wish. Good. Zhao Fuyao turned and vanished. Young patriarch, we intend to return to the Jiang family first to inform the Grand Elder and the Mountain Ancestor about the Yin Yang Holy Land. That sect cannot be allowed to remain, the fourth elder said solemnly. They were old. These final opportunities were better left to the youth. Whether it was Jiang Xian or Jiang Hong, the benefits they would gain far outweighed anything the elders could achieve. Jiang Xian nodded in appreciation. Thank you for your hard work, elders. The elders felt a weight lift. With those words from the young patriarch, their previous failures were forgiven. They left immediately, knowing that once the mountain ancestor heard the news, the Yin Yang Holy Land would likely be wiped from the map of Xuantian. I will take Jiang Zhao back to the Great Gan Empire and wait for your news there, Nangong Mingde said, holding the child. Jiang Xian was about to tell Jiang Zhao to behave for her mother when the scholar tree's voice spoke again. Phoenix, you stay as well. Nangong Mingde was confused but smiled nonetheless. Fei Xian looked at Jiang Hong with a pained expression. Little Hong, I have to go. Once you are out, you better come find me. She pointed a finger at him, her nose wrinkling in a fierce warning. If you dare ignore me, you are dead. Jiang Hong rubbed his nose awkwardly and gave a helpless nod. I will. You better. Fei Xian gave him one last look and reluctantly departed. Jiang Xian walked over and threw an arm around Jiang Hong's shoulder. Not bad, kid. You have barely grown in your feathers, and you are already picking up girls? Jiang Hong's face darkened. He could not argue. According to his bone age, he was only 6 months old, barely older than Jiang Zhao. Jiang Xian was about to tease him further when the villagers in the fields, who had been watching with awe, stepped forward. Our village chief requests your presence. Chapter 389, The So-Called Immortals. Jiang Xian and his companions entered Great Scholar Village. Under the guidance of the old man, they walked behind the thatched huts to find a sprawling vegetable garden. There, a white bearded man dressed in coarse hemp clothing was hunched over, carefully tending to a row of thriving greens. You have arrived? The old man did not look back. He remained focused on watering his plants. Wait a moment. Let me finish watering this section first. Jiang Xian and the others watched the weathered old man in silence, feeling a sense of bewilderment. Could this truly be the Earth Sovereign? At that moment, the voice of the scholar tree echoed once more in their minds. Wait with patience. The vegetables planted by the Earth Sovereign contain the rhythm of the Great Dao. They are a miracle of creation and will bring you great benefit. You are all in your period of growth. Eating these will refine your physical bodies and purify your foundations. If the timing is right, you may even experience an epiphany and raise your understanding of the Dao. The group was stunned. They gazed at the watering man with complex emotions. Was this legendary powerhouse, who once dominated the primordial era, truly reduced to this appearance? It was a stark contrast to the image they had held in their minds. May I ask for your honorable name, senior? Jiang Xian inquired with curiosity. What happened back then? What did the Earth Sovereign encounter that forced him into such deep seclusion? I was originally a mere scholar tree, the voice replied. I was enlightened by the Earth Sovereign and gained sapience to manage this secret realm on his behalf. You may consider me the spirit of this place. As for the past, alas. The scholar tree sighed deeply. When the human emperor vanished, the human race was plagued by internal conflict. Beliefs clashed, and there were those lurking in the shadows, fueling the fire for their own gain. Within a few eras, the human immortal court collapsed into fractured factions. The myriad races saw their opportunity. They joined forces, intending to topple the court and exterminate humanity. At that time, the Earth's sovereign, the 8 great human kings, and many deities attempted to forcibly unite the factions to strike back. However, the internal ranks were filled with self-serving cowards who only cared for their own safety. The human race possessed supreme power, yet it could not be mobilized. Our front lines retreated again and again. Driven by desperation, the 8 great human kings took a reckless gamble. They intended to crush the demon race with a lightning strike to warn the other tribes. But the demon race seemed prepared. They laid a trap in their ancestral lands, and the Dark Sea Demon Emperor waited in ambush. The 8 kings and the masters of the 8 royal clans were trapped and forced into a fight to the death. In the end, after paying a catastrophic price, the royal clans achieved a Pyrrhic victory. The 8 kings managed to slay the Dark Sea Demon Emperor, but no one expected what happened next. As he died, the Demon Emperor sacrificed his immortal foundation to cast a horrific curse upon the 8 royal clans. The kings were heavily wounded and were eventually pinned forever in those ancestral lands by arriving reinforcements. Because of that curse, the 8 royal clans withered and declined rapidly. Human strength was slashed by nearly half. With the royal clans no longer at the front lines, the armies of the myriad races surged forward into human territory. The remaining deities could not hold them back and were slaughtered almost to the last man. The scholar tree let out a bitter, mocking laugh. Only then did the cowards who had been holding back their strength finally panic. They were terrified. They begged the Earth's sovereign to step forward, to lead the race and hold back the tides. Where were they when we needed them before? The tree could not help but curse. A pack of animals. The group fell silent, their hearts heavy with a turbulent mix of sorrow and rage. Historians never fully explained the transition from the peak of the primordial era to the rapid decline of the ancient era. They only knew that the immortal court once ruled above the heavens, yet it had lost to the myriad races with shocking speed. Today, learning the hidden truth, they felt a profound sense of grief. With such parasites within, how could they not have lost? And what happened after? Jiang Xuan asked, struggling to keep his emotions in check. After, the scholar tree sighed. The Earth's sovereign could not bear to see humanity perish. He took up the banner, gathered the remaining tribes, and consolidated what was left of our strength to resist. Afterward, the human race was purged by the myriad races. Survivors fled in all directions, leading to the fragmented state of the world today. The Earth's sovereign was heartbroken. He chose to no longer interfere in human affairs and retired here, where he has remained until now. Rage burned like a wildfire in the chests of Jiang Xuan and his companions. Senior, which factions were they? Jiang Xuan asked, his voice rasping with killing intent. He did not have much longevity left, which usually made him value his life above all else. He preferred to hide from trouble whenever possible. But some things cannot be ignored simply because one wants to survive. Some things must be done. Nangong Mingde and Zhang Hong felt the same. As members of the human race, they knew exactly what was required of them. If a hero like the Earth's sovereign was left to wither in silence, it was a disgrace to every human alive. Those wretches had to pay, even if their current strength seemed insignificant. With their potential, it would not take long to reach a level where they could settle the score. The scholar tree sighed, seemingly comforted by their reaction. At least most of the humans the Earth's sovereign protected are still good at heart. The animals were a minority. It is enough that you have this intent. Those traitors preserved their strength perfectly. They never declined. Today, they have grown into massive, unstoppable entities. You are not yet strong enough to face them. Senior, please tell us, Jiang Xuan said firmly. Treat it as a goal. A goal to seek vengeance for the Earth's sovereign. Nangong Mingde and Zhang Hong nodded in unison. Good children, the scholar tree laughed softly. Very well. Given your potential, you will encounter them sooner or later. The tree then revealed the truth. When they attacked the Earth's sovereign, they effectively betrayed the human race. There was no longer a place for them among us. It seemed they intended to sever their ties with humanity to avoid being purged by the myriad races anyway. So, they changed their appearance and began calling themselves the Immortals. The scholar tree gave a look of pure disdain. They occupied the Mountain Sea Realm, an ancient human treasure. They channeled the vital energy of that realm into their bodies to transform their bloodlines. From that day on, they stopped being human and started acting as those make-believe immortals. Chapter 390. This human race cannot be guarded. Immortals? The group frowned, finding the term both unexpected and absurd. A pack of animals had draped themselves in a new skin and started calling themselves immortals. They call themselves the immortal race, dominating a distant star domain. Today, they are likely a superpower on par with the myriad races, the scholar tree explained with a trace of disdain. But their so-called immortality depends entirely on the Mountain Sea realm, a lost treasure of the human race. They find it difficult to expand their bloodline naturally. To grow their numbers, those wretches came up with a devious scheme. They established various orthodoxies across the heavens, calling them immortal gates. They deceive humans who are ignorant of the truth, taking them as disciples and claiming they can lead them to immortality. This so-called ascension is nothing more than planting the energy of the mountain sea into a human to forcibly alter their bloodline. Jiang Xuan and the others were stunned. They never expected such a dark history behind the word. Immortals? Immortal gates? It was truly a laughable joke. By this time, the Earth Sovereign had finished watering his crops. He straightened his back and called out, "All right, come over here." Jiang Xuan and his companions hesitated. Standing before such a legendary hero of humanity, they felt a wave of nervousness. "Go on," the scholar tree whispered. "Talk to him as you would anyone else." Jiang Xuan nodded and stepped into the vegetable garden. Jiang Xuan, a junior of the human race, greets the Earth Sovereign. He bowed with deep respect. No need for those empty formalities. "Here, give me a hand." The Earth Sovereign smiled and handed Jiang Xuan a wicker basket. He bent down and began picking vegetables, chatting as he worked. "You have arrived at the perfect time. These greens have just ripened. Later, I will let you have a taste of my cooking." Jiang Xuan bit his lip, thought for a moment, and then knelt beside the Earth Sovereign to help. "These vegetables look wonderful. You must have put a great deal of heart into them, senior." "Huh, I am old. All I can do now is tend to a garden," the Earth Sovereign replied. Jiang Xuan felt a stir in his heart and smiled. "An elder in the house is like a treasure in the home. It is only because of your careful nurturing that these plants grow so beautifully." The Earth Sovereign's hands paused for a fraction of a second before returning to their steady rhythm. He glanced at Jiang Xuan and laughed. "You are quite the smooth talker for someone so young." Jiang Xuan gave a cheeky grin but said nothing more, continuing to fill the basket. Soon, it was overflowing with lush, green vegetables. "Come, I will show you my skills today," the Earth Sovereign said cheerfully. "I would be honored." Jiang Xuan followed him, carrying the basket toward a thatched hut that served as a kitchen. After the vegetables were washed, the fire was lit. Cooking is like anything else. You cannot rush it, but you cannot be slow either. Master the heat, and do it all in one breath, the Earth Sovereign explained. He watched the black iron pot, and once the oil was hot, he added the seasonings and vegetables in order. With a few simple stirs, the dish was ready. It was a humble meal, but perhaps because the vegetables were extraordinary, the dish seemed to glow with a faint mist the moment it was finished. An inviting aroma wafted out, one that seemed to wash over the soul and clear the mind. Simple, right? The Earth Sovereign handed the dish to Jiang Xuan. Jiang Xuan took it and nodded. Cultivation is the same as cooking. When the heat is right, success follows naturally. This junior has learned much. The Earth Sovereign looked at Jiang Xuan with a deep, knowing gaze, but then he laughed and scolded him playfully. This old man said no such thing. Do not go filling in the blanks with your own imagination. Yes, you were only talking about cooking. It was my own nonsense, Jiang Xuan responded with a smile. Inside his dantians, the phantom of reincarnation began to rotate slowly, rippling with a mysterious, profound aura that felt limitless. Whether the Earth Sovereign saw through him or not, the old man simply nodded and said, "Invite your friends to have some as well." "You are too kind, but they are not hungry," Jiang Xuan said, shaking his head. He held the plate tightly, showing no intention of sharing. On the surface, it was just a plate of greens, but it contained a massive amount of pure spiritual energy and an indescribable rhythm of the Great Dao. This single dish was worth more than 1,000 divine medicines. "You cannot finish that alone." The Earth Sovereign glared at him. "You underestimate me, senior," Jiang Xuan countered immediately. "I have always had a large appetite. This plate is barely enough for me. How about you trouble yourself to make a little more? You little brat." The Earth Sovereign stared at him, then realized how much emotion he was showing. He shook his head and laughed. "Fine, I will make more. Go and pick some more for me." He tossed the basket back to Jiang Xuan. On it, Jiang Xuan finished the greens in a few quick bites before grabbing the basket. The spiritual energy and Dao rhythm exploded in his dantian like a mushroom cloud. The world tree seedling, the reincarnation phantom, and his black hole foundation worked together to refine and absorb the power. Outwardly, Jiang Xuan showed no change, but his overall strength was rising in every category. The Earth Sovereign watched him, his cloudy eyes suddenly becoming deep and piercing as if he were lost in thought. Soon, Jiang Xuan returned with another full basket. "Senior, there seems to be a problem with your crops," Jiang Xuan said, holding up a single vegetable. "Look, this one has pests." The Earth Sovereign took the plant, looked at it, and plucked off a few leaves. "I use too much fertilizer. It is hard to avoid. Can it still be eaten?" Jiang Xuan asked. "It is just a few bugs. Pluck the bad leaves, and it is fine. Why wouldn't it be edible?" "I find it hard to agree with that," Jiang Xuan said. He took the vegetable back and tossed it away into the garden. Over time, the discarded plant would rot and become fertilizer for new seedlings. If you do not wipe out the pests completely, they will eventually ruin the rest of the garden. The Earth Sovereign's expression stiffened, and he sighed. These are all plants I raised with my own hands. I cannot bear to destroy them. Jiang Xuan smiled. If you cannot bear to do it, leave it to me. I will clean them out for you. You, the Earth Sovereign shook his head. You are young. You should not waste your mind on such things. Does being young or old have anything to do with planting gardens and killing bugs? Jiang Xuan asked in return. The Earth Sovereign froze. After a long silence, he slowly shook his head, his voice filled with complex emotions. Indeed, it has nothing to do with age. Then it is settled. Just watch, senior. I will handle this beautifully for you. Jiang Xuan laughed. The Earth Sovereign smiled back. Then this old man will wait for your good news. He took the basket and started the fire again. Jiang Xuan watched him, hesitating for a moment before asking, don't you want to expand the garden and plant more? The Earth Sovereign focused on the pot, his expression unchanged. I am old. I do not have the energy anymore. If I can take good care of this one plot, I am satisfied. Jiang Xuan was unwilling to let it go. You could pass down your experience to us. Why not let the younger generation handle the expansion? The Earth Sovereign stopped cooking and looked at Jiang Xuan. There are too many beasts eyeing the garden. If the garden gets too big, it cannot be guarded. In that instant, his tone and expression shifted. It was as if a glimpse of his majestic past had surfaced, yet it was clouded by an erasure of hope and a deep loneliness. I cannot guard it either. Jiang Xuan's heart trembled. Even the Earth Sovereign could not guard it. An unspeakable pressure crashed down on him, making him tense. Are the myriad races truly that powerful? He blurted out. The Earth Sovereign did not answer. He looked at the pot and smiled. The food is ready. He scooped the vegetables onto a plate and looked at Jiang Xuan with a smirk. No portion for you this time. He carried the dish to Nangong Mingde and the others, letting them share it. As the spiritual energy and Dao rhythm filled their bodies, they immediately sat cross-legged to begin refining the power. Their auras surged as their strength climbed rapidly. The Earth Sovereign stood by, watching them and nodding to himself. The human race never lacks for brilliant young souls. Jiang Xuan stood beside him, his mind clouded with worry. Do not think too much, the Earth Sovereign said, patting Jiang Xuan on the shoulder. These things are not for you to worry about yet. Even if the sky falls, it is not your turn to hold it up. Chapter 391. The Ancestral Sacred Artifact Shatters. Jiang Xuan pursed his lips, feeling a heavy sense of helplessness. He carried the destiny of the human race, recognized by the will of humanity and crowned as a young king. The rise or fall of his people was a responsibility he could not cast aside. If the sky truly was falling, as the Earth Sovereign suggested, and he did not stand to block it, who would? He was prepared for that burden. He would not retreat. However, his immediate fixation remained the longevity shackles brought by his bloodline curse. This forced him to seize every possible opportunity to raise his cultivation at breakneck speed. Looking toward the future, the revitalization of the human race seemed to be the only path forward. Setting aside lofty notions of mission or duty, Jiang Xuan knew his journey had been paved by the gifts of his predecessors. The Master, the Jixiao Academy, the Human Monument, the Seal of Xuanqiu, and now the Earth Sovereign. These were all legacies bestowed upon him. Having accepted such grace, it was only right to offer something in return. It was the same logic as repaying one's parents for their upbringing. One cannot live as an ungrateful wolf. Yet, the implications in the Earth Sovereign's words weighed on him. Could even a figure as legendary as this not hold the line? Were the myriad races truly that overwhelming? Or did the sovereign harbor other hidden concerns? A sudden sense of urgency gripped Jiang Xuan. He reflected on his recent progress, wondering if he had grown complacent. Seeing Jiang Xuan's furrowed brow, the Earth Sovereign reached out with a rough, weathered palm and patted his shoulder. His voice was heavy with the wisdom of ages. Child, many things in this world are not as simple as you imagine. Even growing vegetables requires daily watering, weeding, and careful tending. How much more so for the vast world of men and the ancient, desolate, Great Dao? There is no such thing as instant success or a single step to heaven. Jiang Xuan's eyes lowered in deep thought. He felt himself sinking into a profound, ethereal state. In his dantian, the black hole foundation vibrated gently, emitting a mysterious aura. The phantom of reincarnation, which had been hungrily devouring the Dao rhyme to solidify its form, suddenly froze. It seemed struck by an immense terror, not daring to move a single inch. Nearby, the world tree seedling trembled, its branches swaying in a panic. Boss, it is just me, the little tree. Please, take it easy. A divine radiance of the great Dao flickered in Jiang Xuan's eyes, making him appear like a supreme being. He looked at the Earth Sovereign and nodded slowly. Your teachings are correct, senior. I understand now. The Dao is vast, and the search is long. One must never lose their sense of reverence. You have realized it? The Earth Sovereign asked with a smile. I have gained some insight, but I need time to digest it. Jiang Xuan replied sincerely. Then go. With a wave of the sovereign's hand, the world shifted. Jiang Xuan, Nangong Mingde, and the others were instantly transported into a hazy, chaotic space. All around them, physical manifestations of Great Dao inscriptions floated like solid objects, and the mysterious vapors of the source flowed like clouds. This junior offers his thanks. Jiang Xuan bowed, then sat cross-legged. A brilliant light of the Dao surged around him. His various inheritances and foundations manifested one after another, flickering between light and shadow, birth and destruction. It was as if his entire being was being reforged and purified. The Earth's sovereign watched Jiang Xuan, nodding with satisfaction. This boy's comprehension is monstrous. A phantom figure suddenly appeared beside the sovereign, staring at Jiang Xuan in amazement. It had seemed as though the Earth's sovereign was merely offering advice, yet he had not used his great power to lead the boy into the depths of the Dao. Without that direct guidance, any words spoken were usually just empty talk, a collection of well-meaning but useless platitudes. Yet Jiang Xuan had understood regardless. It was inconceivable. The boy himself is a piece of unpolished jade, the Earth's sovereign said with a faint smile. It is a pity that he carries too many treasures. They actually end up obscuring his own natural brilliance. A pity? The phantom asked, confused. Those are all supreme inheritances. Any one of them would allow a person to seek the Dao. Is it not a blessing to possess so many? The Earth's sovereign laughed softly. For now, it is a blessing. He has only just entered the Tianyuan realm. With these inheritances, he can crush those in the Dao Integration Realm and remain invincible among his peers. But as for his future, that is hard to say. What do you mean? The phantom was baffled. Please, senior, stop speaking in riddles. The Earth's sovereign chuckled, placed his hands behind his back, and slowly walked out of that pocket dimension. Throughout history, among those who sat atop the heavens and looked down upon the universe, how many achieved immortality by merely following the old paths of others? The Dao must be one's own. Elsewhere, the geniuses and monsters of various factions had left the Earth's sovereign's secret realm. News of what had happened inside spread like a wildfire, sweeping across the 5 great provinces of Xuantian. Jiang Xuan of the Jiang family had slain the Qin family's genius, Qin Qiankun. He possessed a world tree seedling, had been chosen by the Earth's sovereign, and was currently receiving a legendary inheritance? What kind of monster was he? Could this truly be the era of Jiang Xuan? Countless powers were shaken and unsettled, desperately seeking ways to counter this rise. The Great Age had not yet fully dawned, the Dao had not completely awakened, and the ultimate opportunities had yet to appear. They were unwilling to admit defeat and hand everything over so easily. The current state of Xuantian fell into a strange, deceptive calm, a silence before a storm, where undercurrents swirled with violent intent. The Qin family's true gods, Qin Ji and Qin Tong, were furious when they learned that 10 of their family's elite had died in the secret realm, with Qin Qiankun and Qin Lan falling by Jiang Xuan's hand. Their first instinct was to march on the Jiang family and level it to the ground. However, they received orders from their clan head to stand by and prepare to welcome the arrival of 3 elders. The command emphasized that the absolute priority was the world tree in Jiang Xuan's possession. Thus, they waited outside the secret realm, stalking their prey. In another location, Yang Kong, do you truly wish to die? Ming Litian, covered in blood, stared at Yang Kong with eyes full of burning rage and murderous intent. After leaving the secret realm, Ming Litian had intended to ambush Jiang Xuan to seize his fortunes. He believed that with the ancestral sacred artifact in his possession, a sneak attack would allow him to kill Jiang Xuan easily. Yang Kong had somehow found him, admitted to his previous mistakes, and offered his help. Ming Litian had not been suspicious and accepted the aid. But for some unknown reason, this cursed Yang Kong had turned and attacked him when his guard was down. I warned you over and over again that Jiang Xuan is not to be provoked, Yang Kong said. His expression was calm, his sword-like eyes fixed on Ming Litian. The pure Yang Sword Palace cannot afford the price of crossing him. Yet you repeatedly ignored me, blinded by your own arrogance. If you want to seek death, I cannot stop you, but the Sword Palace will not be dragged into ruin for your selfish desires. Unmasked, killing intent radiated from Yang Kong. Today you must die? Ming Litian froze. It was truly because of Jiang Xuan? He was being killed by his own kin out of fear of an outsider? He had forcibly practiced secret techniques from his past life, raising his strength enough to rival the Dao Integration Realm. Under normal circumstances, crushing Ming Litian would be easy, but the sacred artifact was a massive variable. That was why he had feigned an apology to strike first. Now he realized he had still underestimated the horror of the ancestral artifact. I can only hope to take him down with me, Yang Kong thought. He steeled his resolve and lunged toward Ming Litian. Seeking death, Ming Litian sneered. Do you think you can stand against the power of a sacred artifact? But at that exact moment, crack, with a sharp, clear snapping sound, the ancestral sacred artifact began to splinter. It suddenly shattered into 1,000 pieces, scattering across the ground. The 40,000 beast shadows vanished instantly, dissolving into nothingness. Ming Letian stared blankly at the shards at his feet, his mind going completely numb. The ancestral sacred artifact had broken? Chapter 392, Yinyang Holy Land, annihilated. Thanks to the foresight of the ancestor Jiang Qiankun, the ancestral sacred artifact held by Ming Letian was unable to withstand the full force of his spiritual energy. It buckled and shattered into 1,000 pieces. Deprived of his greatest asset and already suffering from grievous wounds, Ming Letian was no match for Yang Kong. Before long, he fell beneath Yang Kong's blade, bringing the life of a prominent genius to a violent end. Having neutralized that ticking time bomb, Yang Kong allowed himself a brief moment of relief. He wasted no time returning to the pure Yang Sword Palace. Utilizing the prestige and deep foundations of his past life, he rallied the support of the ancestors and elders. They swiftly deposed the current Sword Lord and removed his head. Then, Yang Kong personally delivered the head to the Jiang family as a gesture of apology. The reparations were immense, costing the pure Yang Sword Palace nearly half of its accumulated wealth. Standing before the Jiang family ancestral hall, Yang Kong swore a Dao oath to the Grand Elder. He pledged that the pure Yang Sword Palace would withdraw from the world immediately. Without the Jiang family's explicit consent, no member of the palace would set foot in Xuantian for 10,000 years. All of this was done for a single promise, that the Jiang family would no longer pursue their past grievances. The Jiang family elders were surprised by the speed and sincerity of this total submission. After consulting with the mountain ancestor, the Grand Elder accepted the apology. Satisfied, Yang Kong departed. By the following day, the pure Yang Sword Palace announced its complete seclusion, sealing their divine mountain behind a killing sword array and severing all ties with the outside world. As one of the premier powers in the eastern province, the sudden disappearance of the pure Yang Sword Palace caused ripples of curiosity. Many factions sent agents to investigate, but the event was quickly overshadowed by even greater shifts occurring across Xuantian. In the southern province, the desolate heaven god Lord successfully broke through to the void god realm. Upon his emergence, he rallied thousands of sects to launch a crusade against the Great Luo Holy Land for their collusion with the demon race. Simultaneously, Jiang Wuji made a powerful entry into the true god realm, mobilizing the full strength of the Jiang family to join the assault. War was on the horizon in the south. In the western province, the Buddhist son Jiang Rulai achieved the Buddha fruit several months prior. This caused the 3,000 worlds to manifest in the skies, drawing the attention of the ancestors in the supreme Buddha kingdom. They dispatched the Kasyapa Bodhisattva and 3 golden arhats to serve as his protectors. Kasyapa Bodhisattva occupied the heavenly god realm, while the arhats were in the true god realm. Under this overwhelming display of power, Buddhist light bathed the western province, allowing their teachings to take deep root in the minds of every cultivator. The region began to transform into a literal kingdom of Buddha. In the northern province, Ing Sihai had returned from the Earth's sovereign secret realm. Although he had not claimed the ultimate inheritance, he had recruited a vast number of geniuses and talents. He quickly mobilized his armies for expansion. Using the previous destruction of the Promised Holy Land by the Qin family as a springboard, the Great Qin Empire absorbed massive amounts of resources. Their expansion was ferocious. In just 10 days, they swallowed dozens of smaller sects and organizations. Rumors suggested a mysterious power supported Ing Sihai, as the top powers of the northern province not only allowed this expansion, but seemed to be secretly assisting it. Great Qin was rapidly evolving into a regional hegemon. In the central province, 2 major shifts occurred. First, in the Great Gan Imperial Dynasty, Emperor Nangong Mingde announced his abdication to seek a breakthrough in seclusion. He named Nangong Mingde as his successor, with her coronation set for the moment she emerged from the secret realm. Factions were baffled by the sudden move until rumors surfaced that on the day the geniuses left the realm, the true god ancestor Nangong Mingde had visited the emperor, followed by a brief but violent surge of divine aura. It was clear that the abdication was anything but voluntary. Second, in the Great Underworld Imperial Dynasty, the remaining true gods of the underworld race had been slaughtering and refining the common populace. This caused widespread resentment and a rapid decay of the nation's destiny. The god's son, Ming Kong, suffered the consequences of this discord, facing public condemnation as his supporters defected to the 9th prince, Ming Fan. With the help of the Owl King and Wenchang Academy, Ming Fan gained a solid foothold, securing the support of 40% of the clan elders. With Wenchang Academy's 2 true gods and 1 from the Ming family on his side, Ming Fan was now able to contest Ming Kong directly. Internal war raged, with no clear victor in sight. In the Forbidden Life Zone, the 5 geniuses led by Lu Fengqi returned home. The next day, the zone issued a declaration. The Forbidden Life Zone stands together with the Jiang family. Any ill intent directed toward the Jiang family would be viewed as a provocation against the zone itself. The statement shook Xuantian. No one knew the true strength of these ancient humans, and therefore, no one dared to ignore their warning. In the eastern province, the immortal Zhao family announced a 10-year seclusion while they awaited Zhao Fuyo's emergence, echoing the sentiment of standing with the Jiang family. Meanwhile, in the endless sea at the border of the province, blood rain and visions of gods and demons appeared alongside the pressure of a supreme saint. Rumors spread of an ancient ruin appearing, but those who went to investigate found nothing. Finally, there was the longevity Jiang family. After the fourth elder returned with news that the Yin Holy Land was the mastermind behind the recent attacks, the entire family was incensed. They mobilized their forces immediately for a total strike. On this day, the Jiang family stood assembled before their ancestral hall. Led by the Grand Elder, the force was a forest of power: 300 war chariots, 3,000 celestial ships, and 50,000 warriors. The ranks included 40,000 Earth Realm experts, 8,000 at the Heavenly Element Realm, 500 in the Dao Integration Realm, and 40 venerables. While the world knew of the Jiang family's 3 void gods, their strongest, Jiang Qiankun, was still guarding the secret realm for Jiang Xuan. The other 2 stood at the prow of the lead warship. Ahead of them was the ancestor Jiang Qiankun, a powerhouse of the true god realm. Behind them at the hall stood the mountain and ancient ancestors. Though their true bodies remained asleep in the divine tombs, they were ready to manifest at a moment's notice. The Yin Holy Land was doomed. Mountain ancestor, please give the command, the Grand Elder said, bowing in his battle armor. The mountain ancestor looked over the assembled host. His expression was cold and his voice turned to ice. In this battle, I have only one requirement. Regarding the Yin Holy Land, leave not a soul alive. Kill, kill, kill. The Jiang family warriors roared, their battle intent piercing the clouds. Departure. At the Grand Elder's command, the chariots erupted with golden radiance to lead the way, followed closely by the glowing celestial ships. The massive fleet advanced toward the Yin Holy Land. 1 hour later, their target came into view. Strangely, the premier sect of the eastern province no longer looked sacred. The mountains were broken, the land was ruined, and the protective arrays were shattered. Overwhelming demonic energy swirled over the site like a realm of hell. The soldiers were stunned. What had happened here? Then, the true demon stepped forward. His massive frame stood between heaven and earth, drenched in blood and radiating a violent aura. Recognizing the newcomers, the true demon laughed loudly. Jiang family, you are late. The Yin Holy Land has already been slaughtered to the last man by my hand. Chapter 393, Leaving means killing. The true demon? The members of the Jiang family were struck by a wave of confusion. They wondered why the true demon was not lurking in the demon abyss and had instead emerged to launch a secret ambush that wiped out the Yin Holy Land. From what they remembered, there was no history of conflict between these two sides. The Xuantian Realm is not a place for you to run wild. Make sure you understand that. Otherwise, it is only a matter of time before the human race tramples the demon abyss into the dust. Jiang Qiankun stepped forward, casting a cold gaze toward the true demon. He made no effort to hide his disdain. If the circumstances were not so unique, with the great age approaching and various powers harboring their own hidden agendas, they would never tolerate the presence of the demon abyss or the underworld race within Xuantian. A flicker of irritation crossed the true demon's eyes, but he held his tongue. The hidden foundations of the longevity Jiang family were far too terrifying to ignore. He had to treat this with caution and heed the warning. If it was not absolutely necessary, he had no desire to clash with them directly. To do so would only jeopardize his chances of returning to his peak strength. You can rest easy. This seat has no intention of making an enemy of the Jiang family. The true demon spoke with an indifferent tone. I only struck the Yin Holy Land to settle a debt of karma. As he spoke, he raised a hand to reveal a shimmering thread of laws. It was the soul contract that the Yin Saint Lord had once planted inside Jiang Qiankun. Through a twist of fate, it had integrated into the true demon's own body. This was why the Yin Saint Lord believed Jiang Qiankun was still alive and had used his past life shadow to impersonate the boy, performing a series of foolish maneuvers within the Earth's sovereign secret realm. A soul contract? Jiang Qingtian's eyes narrowed slightly, feeling somewhat puzzled. He recognized the object, but soul contracts were incredibly esoteric. The refining process was complex, mastery over them was difficult, and their practical uses were minimal. They were essentially relics of a forgotten era. Had the Yin Holy Land actually managed to plant one inside the true demon? Setting aside whether they had the skill to pull that off, what would be the point? It seemed like a redundant effort. Still, Jiang Qingtian quickly reminded himself that this was the same Yin Holy Land that thought impersonating Jiang Qiankun was a brilliant move. He realized it was impossible to use common logic to predict the thought process of fools. I do not care what kind of karma exists between you and the Yin Holy Land. Just remember this. This is Xuantian, and this is human territory. Jiang Qingtian watched the true demon calmly, yet he remained on guard. Allowing the true demon and the demon abyss to exist was merely a strategic necessity for now. Once the struggle for the Great Age concluded and the dust settled, there would be a day of reckoning. Whether it was the true demon or the underworld race, they would all eventually be purged from Xuantian. The true demon's eyes flickered, masking his emotions. He was well aware that in the eyes of the humans, he was a ticking time bomb. But with the underworld race nearby acting as a more immediate threat, he did not have to worry about his survival just yet. For now, he only needed to remain dormant and recover until the great secrets of Xuantian emerged. That would be his chance to surpass his past life and achieve immortality. He could not afford to miss it. A hint of helplessness passed through his mind. If he had not witnessed the terrifying power of the Jiang family, he would never have acted so timidly. He wouldn't be hiding in the demon abyss, nor would he have wiped out the Yin Holy Land in secret. He was forced to bow his head because their strength simply outweighed his own. The true demon looked at Jiang Qiankun and spoke in a neutral tone. I am not an unreasonable person. As long as the Jiang family does not make things difficult for me, I will not act recklessly. Jiang Qiankun narrowed his eyes, surprised by how cooperative the true demon was being. Of course, this was a development he welcomed. Maintaining a peaceful front without unnecessary chaos was for the best. I will give you a piece of intelligence as a bonus. The true demon lifted the soul contract in his hand. The contract has not dissipated. This means the Yin Saint Lord is not dead. He likely sensed that disaster was coming and fled in advance. When I slaughtered my way through the Holy Land, I could not find him. Even when I used the contract to trace his location, there was no sign of him. In my opinion, he has likely already left the Xuantian Realm. Without waiting for a response, the true demon waved his hand to summon his generals. They vanished into a cloud of overwhelming demonic mist and departed at high speed. Not dead. Jiang Qingtian's eyes cast downward, his mood darkening. If the Yin Saint Lord survived, the destruction of the Holy Land was not a complete victory. Having such a threat hiding in the shadows, watching the Jiang family, was a constant source of unease. It is easy to steal, but hard to guard against a thief forever. However, if the Saint Lord had truly left the realm, it would be nearly impossible for the Jiang family to hunt him down with their current reach. If there is no other way, I may have to ask Master to step in, Jiang Qingtian thought to himself. Ancestor, should we return to the clan now? The Grand Elder asked hesitantly. Jiang Qingtian suppressed his worries and looked at the Grand Elder before scanning the assembled warriors. Everyone was brimming with pent-up energy. They had come prepared to slaughter their enemies and demonstrate the Jiang family's divine might. To march out with such momentum only to find an empty nest and return home in frustration was unacceptable. Return to the clan? Jiang Qingtian snapped at the Grand Elder. We came out here to kill people. We arrived too late for the Yin Holy Land, so we will simply move on to the next one. He was not like Jiang Qiankun, who had mastered the art of being cautious and steady. Jiang Qingtian followed a much simpler philosophy: kill them all. Once everyone is dead, there are no more enemies. In the eyes of Xuantian, the Jiang family had been seen as declining for millions of years. Many factions had lost their sense of fear and respect. That had to change. Today, he would make them remember what it meant to fear the Jiang name. Jiang Qingtian looked at the thousands of warriors on the chariots and ships. His voice boomed like thunder across the sky. Today, we do not return home until we have fought to our heart's content. We do not return until the eastern province is drenched in blood. Yes, the Jiang family warriors roared, their faces flushed with excitement. List every organization that has a grievance against our family, Jiang Qingtian commanded. The Grand Elder looked helpless, but he could not defy the order. He quickly compiled a list and presented it. Reporting to the ancestor, there is the Demon Chief Cave, the Tai Dao Gate, the Heaven-Slaying Hall, the Tianyi Holy Land. In total, there are 27 factions. This includes 3 top-tier sects, 20 first-rate powers, and 4 near first-rate organizations. Their strengths and backgrounds are all detailed here for your review. Jiang Qingtian waved his hand dismissively. They are all going to die anyway. Why bother reading the details? Pick one at random and let us begin. The Grand Elder felt lost. Years of service had conditioned him to be prudent. He found it difficult to adapt to such a brash approach. You have spent all these years and still haven't become the clan head. Do you still not understand? Jiang Qingtian shook his head. You lack boldness. Jiang Qingtian took the list, tossed it into the air, and caught one name. The Heaven-Slaying Hall. They are the ones. Heaven wants them to die first, so no one can save them. Jiang Qingtian drew his battle blade and swung it casually. A domineering, sharp arc of energy sliced through the sky, leaving a deep, immeasurable rift in the heavens. Move out. We slaughter the Heaven-Slaying Hall. Chapter 394. I am Nangong Mingde. Beyond the boundaries of the Xuantian Realm, a desolate landmass drifted through the starry river. It had likely been ruined during a great war between gods and demons long ago. Now, it was a hollow shell, devoid of spiritual energy and abandoned by the laws of the Great Dao. Suddenly, a streak of light woven from yin and yang tore through the void and crashed into the continent, gouging a massive crater into the earth. The yin-yang Saint Lord stumbled out of the pit, looking battered and disheveled. His face was dark, and his eyes burned with a cold, resentful light. The Holy Land he had painstakingly built over countless years was gone, destroyed in an instant. He had been forced to flee like a stray dog, a blow to his pride that felt heavier than any physical wound. The shadow of his past life stepped out from within him and looked at the Saint Lord with an indifferent expression. As long as you live, everything can be rebuilt. This price is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Besides, we have gained something new. Consider it a necessary trade. Oh, so I have become a gain in your eyes now. A face manifested on the chest of the shadow. It was the elderly, eccentric god of wealth from the Earth's sovereign secret realm. We have already merged, the shadow replied calmly. Your authority over wealth will be mine sooner or later. The god of wealth laughed. He showed no anger. Instead, he looked upon his new vessel with a hint of appreciation. If you truly have the ability to take it, then I will gladly hand my authority to you. It is only a matter of time, the shadow said with a faint smile. The god of wealth narrowed his eyes, feeling puzzled. Your home has been leveled. How can you act as if nothing has happened? The Yin-Yang Holy Land ruled Xuantian for an entire era during the ancient times, the shadow explained, his gaze growing deep. Even during our period of dormancy, we remained the premier power of the eastern province. Do you really think our foundations were limited to what you saw? A clever rabbit has 3 burrows. A sect like mine is no different. In truth, ever since he had taken control of the Holy Land, he had been quietly shifting its core resources. After obtaining certain insights from the Earth's sovereign secret realm, he had established a new base elsewhere. That secret location was the true heart of the Yin-Yang Holy Land. He had only returned to the old site for one specific reason. The shadow cast a cryptic glance at the current Saint Lord, his eyes flickering with a predatory intent. The god of wealth looked at the Saint Lord and then back at the shadow. I have to wonder, which of you is the true self and which is the clone? Whose will takes priority? The Saint Lord's expression darkened even further. The shadow did not bother to explain or soothe the man's growing suspicion. Instead, he addressed the god of wealth. I allowed you to reside within me to be of use, not to listen to your chatter. Is what you said true? Is the bloodline of the immortal race really no weaker than that of the spirit race? The spirit race possesses divine traits because their ancestors were heroes of inside the Earth's sovereign secret realm. Half a month had passed since Jiang Xuan and the others began their secluded cultivation. Within that hazy, chaotic space, a magnificent phoenix born of heavenly fire sat in silent vigil. The bird enveloped Nangong Mingde, surrounded by flowing golden flames. The Dao of fire had manifested as a physical abyss of heat. Nangong Mingde stood at the center of this vortex like a queen of embers, commanding every flame in existence to bow before her. A hum resonated through the air. Nangong Mingde slowly opened her eyes. They shimmered with a brilliant, divine fire as the aura of the Tianyuan realm surged around her. By refining the rhythm of the Great Dao, she had achieved a breakthrough. Her comprehension of fire had officially reached the level of Great Dao power. Having previously received the inheritance of Dan Xingzi, she was already a candidate to become the master of fire. Her progress was a natural evolution of that destiny. Now, with her cultivation firmly in the Tianyuan realm, she had reached a new height. While some might consider her cultivation level average compared to other geniuses of the Great Age, Nangong Mingde knew better. In the eyes of a true monster, raw cultivation level was often the least important factor. She remained calm, showing little outward joy at her advancement. Instead, she turned her gaze toward Jiang Xuan. He was still surrounded by a dizzying array of phenomena, visions appearing and vanishing in a constant cycle of birth and death. It was impossible to gauge the depths of his progress, but she was certain that when he emerged, his strength would be transformed. A soft smile touched her lips, born of genuine happiness for his success. Since you are finished, come out. The boy still needs more time. The Earth Sovereign's weathered voice echoed in her ear. Nangong Mingde nodded and stepped out of the chaotic dimension, returning to Great Scholar Village. Under the shade of the ancient tree, the Earth Sovereign sat on the ground, quietly brewing tea. Jiang Xuan, Nangong Fengtian, and several other disciples stood respectfully to the side. They had all made significant strides. Jiang Xuan and Nangong Fengtian, in particular, were already radiating the faint aura of the Dao Integration Realm. Come, girl, sit with me. The Earth Sovereign beckoned her over. Nangong Mingde sat opposite him. Thank you for your guidance, senior. It was just a few vegetables I grew myself, he said with a wave of his hand. They aren't worth much. She smiled but did not argue. The Dao rhythm contained in those vegetables was a treasure beyond price, something that could not be found anywhere else in Xuantian. For young geniuses in their prime growth phase, it was a miracle worth more than 1,000 divine artifacts. How do you feel? The sovereign asked. The Great Dao is within my reach, she replied honestly. Oh, the Earth Sovereign looked at her with surprise. Such confidence? Is it because of your Nirvana Phoenix physique? Your destiny? He paused, a playful glint in his eyes. Or is it because of your fiancé, Jiang Xuan? Nangong Mingde's cheeks flushed slightly, but her expression remained composed. I heard the teachings you gave to Jiang Xuan. Though my talent is modest, I have gained my own insights. She looked up at him, her voice steady and filled with an unshakable resolve. The Great Dao is within my reach because I am Nangong Mingde. Chapter 395. If the human race is in danger, how can we discuss the Great Dao? The Earth's sovereign froze. He scrutinized Nangong Mingde for a long time, and finally, he gave a slow, satisfied nod. A sigh of relief escaped his weathered lips. The human race is bound to flourish. You flatter me, Senior, Nangong Mingde replied, remaining composed. I dare not claim to be the hope of the human race. I can only guarantee that when the human race needs me, I will stand up. To have this intention is already very difficult and commendable. The Earth's sovereign smiled, then brewed a fresh cup of tea and handed it to her. Have some tea. Nangong Mingde accepted it with both hands and took a light sip. The refreshing aroma of the tea cut straight to her chest. In this moment, it felt as though her soul had been purified. Her eyes lit up and she couldn't help but exclaim, "Good tea. Huh, just something I chowed myself. I am not particularly good at it, so it is nothing special." The Earth's sovereign spoke modestly, but the smile on his face made it clear he appreciated the compliment. They chatted for a moment. Nangong Mingde hesitated, then put down her teacup. She looked toward the Earth's sovereign and asked, "Senior, I must know, is the Phoenix destiny ultimately beneficial to me?" That grand dream, so vivid it felt like a past life, had provided her with many opportunities and fortunes, allowing her strength to skyrocket. Yet a nagging worry had lingered in her mind, unsure if it was a blessing or a curse. Especially after learning about the concept of destiny, that worry had intensified. The Earth's sovereign shook his head and laughed. Whether it is beneficial or not is a question you must ask yourself. Nangong Mingde's brows furrowed slightly. Please clarify, Senior. I know the worry in your heart. Fear that one day you will become nothing more than a stepping stone for someone else. I can tell you clearly, you are overthinking it. That will not happen. The Earth's sovereign explained to clear her confusion. All living beings have destiny. Or rather, it is exactly because of destiny's existence that they become living beings, possess souls, can think, and cultivate. You were already born with the Phoenix destiny, but by fortune's grace, it has awakened, allowing you to see some things that exist within it. Nangong Mingde looked thoughtful. Meaning, Senior, that destiny is like a secret treasury? I have touched upon and opened it, so the things inside naturally belong to me? Precisely. The Earth's sovereign nodded. Just like bloodline or constitution, these are fortunes and gifts inherent from birth. Destiny is the same. Nangong Mingde nodded, the weight in her heart finally lifting. However, whether the Phoenix destiny is beneficial to you is something you must judge for yourself. The Earth's sovereign looked at her and offered some advice. The Phoenix destiny grants you a starting point far beyond others, and it also bestows you with unparalleled potential. But as for how you actually utilize it, that lies with you. Ultimately, it is just another kind of fortune, no different in essence from a weapon or an inheritance. It is simply a tool to aid you on your path to the Tao. If you rely entirely on the Phoenix destiny, all being well, you might become a second Phoenix, he said with a faint smile. But if you abandon it entirely, your path may become incredibly difficult. Nangong Mingde froze, her beautiful eyes shimmering with a mysterious light. She seemed to be on the verge of understanding. Suddenly, her thoughts turned to Jiang Xuan. Earlier, she had watched as his various inheritances flickered and changed. Senior, and what about Jiang Xuan? The Earth's sovereign nodded and smiled, admitting to his oversight without pretense. It was partiality on my part. I thought that at this current stage, only that boy was capable of touching upon that level, so I did not advise the rest of you. I was clearly mistaken. You are not inferior to him. Just then, amidst a haze of brilliant light, Jiang Hong stepped forth. Every movement seemed in harmony with heaven and earth. He was nature itself, mysterious and without limit. Most striking of all was that Jiang Hong had opened his eyes. Within those dark eyes lay the deep and esoteria of the Great Dao, making one afraid to meet his gaze for fear of being lost within. Indeed, his painstakingly cultivated great divine ability, the 10,000-law heavenly eye, had finally reached full completion today, just as he had wished. Jiang Hong bows in gratitude to the senior. Jiang Hong came before the Earth Sovereign and offered a respectful bow. The Earth Sovereign glanced at him and waved his hand to bring him upright. Your own hard work. I dare not take credit. There was a noticeable tremor in the Earth Sovereign's voice. He then brewed a cup of tea for himself and drank it down in one gulp, as if to hide his slightly emotional state. Our human sons, brilliant geniuses continue to appear. The future looks wonderful. Tears seemed to glisten in the corners of his weathered eyes. Nangong Mingde shifted her gaze toward Jiang Hong, a flash of shock crossing her pupils. His aura was vast and boundless, making it impossible to see his true depth, but she instinctively felt a sense of dread. It was clear that he had achieved massive growth, and his current strength likely exceeded her own by a significant margin. "Have a seat," the Earth Sovereign said, pushing down his emotions. He brewed a cup of tea for Jiang Hong as well. Jiang Hong looked at the Earth Sovereign, then at Nangong Mingde, lost in thought for a moment before nodding and sitting on the ground. After drinking his tea, Jiang Hong considered his words for a moment before looking at the Earth Sovereign. He spoke in a low, serious voice. "I may be blunt, so I hope for your forgiveness, Senior. I must know why you reside here. Do you truly intend to let everything go and spend your golden years in this paradise?" The Earth Sovereign looked at him with a faint smile. "Is that not allowed?" Jiang Hong froze. He had not expected the Earth Sovereign to say that. As a human forerunner, holding the esteemed title of Earth Sovereign, can you truly bear to watch as the human race falls, devoured by the myriad races? Jiang Hong's face was filled with confusion, and his voice was dark. "Surely, with your level of cultivation, Senior, you can see the currents of destiny. The dawning of the Great Age is imminent, and the myriad races who harbor ill intent toward humanity will surely stage a comeback, taking their purge to the next level. Human life is in constant danger." "That is correct." The Earth Sovereign nodded, his voice perfectly calm. "Your analysis is largely correct. There is only one point. The strength of the myriad races is much greater than you imagine. Furthermore, the enemies of humanity are not only the myriad races," the Earth Sovereign thought to himself. He did not say this out loud. Some things were not meant to be borne by these young souls just yet. The heavy weight of that pressure would crush their spines. Jiang Hong was stunned. The strength of the myriad races was greater than he imagined? His expression immediately turned solemn. Though he was a god in his past life, he was really just part of the bottom rung of divinity. His understanding of many of the hidden details and true circumstances surrounding the grand events and conflicts among the myriad races was extremely limited. He had assumed that with a living fossil like the Earth Sovereign around, once he showed his face, he could surely reverse the human race's fortunes, protect them through the chaos of the Great Age, and restore their past glory. But now he realized he had been naive. But Jiang Hong wanted to press further, to persuade the Earth Sovereign to leave. But the Earth Sovereign waved his hand and cut him off, laughing as he scolded him. "You little brat, I have dedicated more than half my life to the human race. Am I really not allowed to retire and enjoy a few quiet days? That is a bit too overbearing on your part." Jiang Hong was left speechless. Even with 1,000 words in his heart, he could only choke them back down. After all, given what the Earth Sovereign went through in the past, who was to say the experience had not left deep scars? Ultimately, the human race was indebted to him. She looked forward to the day when people would look at Jiang Xuan and say, as expected of Nangong Mingde's husband. It was a distant hope, but a pleasant thought to hold on to. They were simply so terrified that they surrendered unconditionally, pledging their loyalty and handing over 70% of their resources as penance. Jiang Qingtian's campaign pushed the Jiang family's prestige to a height unseen for ages. The second event was the coronation of Nangong Mingde. The Great Gan Immortal Dynasty prepared for the grand ascension ceremony. Glowing clouds filled the sky and red silk fluttered in the breeze. Inside and outside the heavenly palace, the atmosphere reached a peak of absolute magnificence. 3,000 elite soldiers of Great Gan stood in the void. They rode upon flood dragons and fire phoenixes, lining the path to welcome guests from every corner of the world. Warships and immortal vessels arrived in an endless stream. The air hummed with the sound of voices, gongs, and drums. The most striking sight lay within the heart of the palace. Sparing no expense, the dynasty activated a sacred formation to project a majestic hall. In the center stood a dragon chair shimmering with red and gold divine light. This was the throne, the ultimate symbol of the Lord of Great Gan. Today, Nangong Mingde would be crowned here. Keep your eyes wide open. Inside the palace, Nangong Mingde, an ancestor and true god, wore a stern expression as he rebuked the elders and experts of the Nangong clan. Anyone who dares to cause trouble today, regardless of their background, is to be executed on the spot. No permission is required. If even the slightest mishap occurs, I will personally send you to meet our ancestors before the emperor can even speak. The crowd shrank back, nodding quickly. Please rest easy, ancestor. Nangong Mingde then turned to the assembled officials. At their head stood the heavenly king, the premier noble of Great Gan. Perform your duties well. Do not be negligent, and do not let us lose face before our guests, Mingde commanded. The officials nodded solemnly. Finally, Mingde looked toward the heavenly king. He paused for a moment before asking in a low, heavy voice, "What of the Jiang family? You were sent to invite them personally. What is the status?" Because of Jiang Xuan, and because of his relationship with the future emperor, Great Gan could ignore any power in the world, except the Jiangs. They could not afford the slightest discourtesy. "The great elder of the Jiang family will arrive shortly," the heavenly king replied respectfully. He sent word that they have prepared a generous gift to congratulate the emperor on her ascension. A generous gift. In her past life, Luo Xinglan had no connection to these events and never witnessed this moment. In this life, she refused to miss it. No one understood better than she did that after today, a new chapter of history would begin. She felt a surge of excitement. The historic moments she had only read about in chronicles were now unfolding before her eyes. It was a strange, wonderful feeling. Deep down, she held a hidden hope. Perhaps one day, she could follow the path of Nangong Mingde and leave her own indelible mark on the long river of history. The Buddhist sect brings 3 Sarira pearls to congratulate the emperor. The golden body Arhut stood with palms pressed together, chanting a soft prayer. The Buddha's son, Jiang Rulai, had ordered him to observe the strength of the various factions to prepare for their next move. The masses suffer, and the Buddha must provide salvation, the Buddha's son had told him. The great Qin Empire presents a true divine artifact. Ing Sihai arrived in a grand dragon carriage. The Forbidden Life Zone presents a saint's ledger. Lu Fengqi and his 4 companions arrived with smiles on their faces. Their sister-in-law was ascending the throne, and they intended to give her plenty of face. Lu Fengqi had even taken a manual written by his own grandfather. This ledger contained the cultivation insights of a saint. Its value was equal to, if not greater than, a saint-grade weapon. One by one, the great powers presented their treasures. Everyone gathered to witness the rise of a new ruler. However, many keen observers noticed a strange absence. The people of the Jiang family had not yet arrived. Given their ties to Great Gan, it seemed impossible. Just then, the sun reached its zenith, and a wave of heat swept through the air. The auspicious hour has arrived, the ceremonial officer shouted. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly palace shook. Brilliant divine light pierced the clouds, reflecting across the world. 10,000 streaks of colorful mist gathered around the hall. Red silk fluttered, paving a grand path. Suddenly, the 3,000 soldiers moved in unison. Their flood dragons roared, and their fire phoenixes cried out. The sound of dragons and phoenixes echoed between heaven and earth, shaking the sky. The sheer scale of the display drew gasps of admiration from the crowd. We welcome the sovereign to her coronation. The heavenly king led the officials in a deep bow. We welcome the sovereign. The cry rippled outward in layers. From the palace to the capital city, from the 33 major cities to the furthest reaches of the empire, it felt as though every citizen of Great Gan was bowing in unison. The sound was thunderous, enough to clear the clouds from the sky. The 33 cities erupted with light. Banners of phoenix fire snapped in the wind, manifesting spectral images of the great phoenix. Its sharp, clear cry resonated through the 9 heavens. Finally, Nangong Mingde stepped forward. She wore a phoenix crown and a ceremonial robe. Spectral phoenixes circled her, accompanied by flickering gold flames. Her face was breathtakingly beautiful, her expression calm and composed. Her eyes held a natural majesty and a touch of cold indifference, like a queen looking down from the highest heavens. One look was enough to make others feel small and insignificant. The most stunning thing was her aura. It seemed to say to the world, I am here. All living things shall bow. Step by step, she walked toward the dragon chair. The observers were struck with awe. Her rise had been incredibly fast, but she had been famous since the moment she appeared. Now, she was set to become a female emperor unlike any the world had ever seen. Regardless of what the future held, she had already secured her place in history. No one could deny that in this era, her light outshone almost every other genius. With the Nirvana Phoenix body and her supreme talent, her future achievements were unimaginable. How many people in this world can compare to such a talent? Many wondered. Perhaps only Jiang Xuan. Many began to understand why the two had a marriage contract. Only someone with equal talent and potential could be considered a perfect match. Over the past few days, the stories of their past had begun to spread. People learned that she had risen from humble beginnings and had once lost her cultivation entirely. Back then, when Jiang Xuan was already one of the 4 greats of his family, he had never looked down on her or broken the engagement. Instead, he had supported her. It was a story that had already become a legend. Wait, people thought. Where is Jiang Xuan? Begin the sacrifice, Nangong Mingde commanded as she reached the throne. As you command. The officer bowed, then stood and shouted to the sky. We report to the heavenly Dao. A new lord of Great Gan is established. We ask the heavens to grant its blessing, that she may share the fortune of the world and her reign may endure. The sky transformed into a deep, swirling vortex. Endless laws of the world manifested, and a massive surge of fortune poured forth. Nangong Mingde raised her hands, preparing to pay her respects to the heavens. Hold! Qin Wuji and 2 others stepped out from the void, their expressions cold. Without the approval of the Qin family, how dare you attempt to take the throne? Chapter 398, The Foundation of Nangong. Nangong Mingde paused her prayer to the heavens. She straightened her back slowly, her indifferent eyes lifting toward the 3 uninvited guests. Her expression remained undisturbed, cold and steady. She uttered only 2 words. The Qin family. Her tone was flat, yet it dripped with pure disdain. What is that? She continued. If you come bearing gifts, you are welcome. But if you come to cause trouble, I do not mind using your blood to toast my reign. The atmosphere turned frigid. Qin Wuji's face darkened instantly. He stared down at Nangong Mingde, a murderous glint flashing in his eyes. He let out a sharp, angry laugh. Fine. Very well. A little girl who knows nothing of the world, yet truly dares to speak such words. Thunder rumbled as the three figures from the Qin family hung in the air. They no longer held back their terrifying power. Their combined presence swept across the landscape like a tidal wave, shaking the void for 10,000 miles. Divine light erupted from their bodies as they merged their strength with the laws of the world. Three massive avatars appeared, towering hundreds of feet high like giants supporting the sky. They looked down upon the masses with cold, detached eyes. The sheer pressure altered the weather itself, replacing the very laws of heaven and earth. Those below trembled, feeling as though they were staring into the faces of gods. This was the might of a heavenly god. Qin Wuji looked down at Nangong Mingde and spoke in a voice like ice. I will allow you to kneel and admit your mistake. From this day forward, Great Gan shall obey the Qin family for 1,000 years. If you do this, I may consider your youth and allow you to live. I will even permit you to continue your ceremony. Otherwise, he let out a cold snort. The sound fell like a divine bolt of lightning. The earth groaned, and the mountains and rivers for miles around shook without end. Standing tall, his avatar seemed to grasp all the rules of the world within its palm. Every soul in the capital skipped a beat, feeling as though their very lives were being held in his hand. The Qin family? Those avatars, are they heavenly gods? Shock rippled through the crowd. It was unbelievable. No one expected the Qin family to strike at this exact moment. Even more terrifying was the fact that they had sent 3 heavenly gods at once. Everyone knew what had happened inside the Earth Emperor's secret realm. Jiang Xuan had been unstoppable, slaying Qin Qiankun and Qin Lan with his sword. He had even destroyed the projection of the Qin clan leader. The blood feud between him and the Qin family was absolute. For over a month, observers had wondered why the Qin family had remained silent. They were the overlords of a vast domain in the Dao Saint realm, possessing a foundation as deep and terrifying as the immortal Jiang family. To see them appear now, at the peak of the Great Gan ceremony, was a shock to the system. Why weren't they hunting Jiang Xuan? Why come for Great Gan instead? But the most staggering detail was the power level. Heavenly gods. In this era, the world was changing. The shackles of heaven and earth had loosened because of Jiang Qiankun breakthrough, but most top factions had only just transitioned from the Void God realm to the True God realm. Only the most transcendent powers, like the Jiang family or the Great Gan Dynasty, held such strength. Most elite sects were still led by void gods. A single heavenly god was a force beyond comprehension in the current mysterious heaven. One such being was enough to dominate the entire world and decide the fate of every living thing. The experts and young geniuses in the audience grew somber. Regardless of their feelings toward Great Gan, they did not want to see this. A power this overwhelming was a mountain pressing down on their heads. No one wanted to be trampled, especially by an outside force. Can Great Gan survive this pressure? Hearts were heavy. They hoped the ancient Great Gan dynasty could maintain its dominance, but they knew the chances were slim. The Heavenly King had already mobilized his troops. They stood ready to die in battle. No one would insult Great Gan and go unpunished, not even a god. Nangong Mingde stepped forward, his face grim. He shouted a warning. I advise you not to make a mistake you will regret. The Qin family may be overlords in the Kunlun domain, but that only means you are fierce in your own backyard. The Dao Saint Realm is vast, and the Qin family is nothing special within it. The price of offending the Nangong clan is something you cannot afford. He let out a cold, mocking laugh. Furthermore, the Great Dao War is near. If the higher-ups of the Dao sect learn that the Qin family, the primary combat sequence, is not preparing for war, but instead sent 3 heavenly gods to the lower realms without permission, you know the consequences better than I do. Great Gan had stood since ancient times. When they first discovered the Dao Saint Realm, they would never have ignored it. The Nangong clan's influence in that realm was no weaker than the Qin family's. Their people had integrated deep into the Dao sect long ago. They simply kept a low profile. Mingde hadn't expected the Qin family to be so foolish as to stretch their claws toward Great Gan. They were practically asking for death. Qin Wuji froze. He stared at Nangong Mingde with disbelief. How could someone in this remote corner of the world be so familiar with the Dao Saint Realm? How did this man know the Qin family was part of the primary combat sequence? Great Gan? The Nangong clan? A sudden realization struck him. His pupils shrank, and the words escaped his lips before he could stop them. The 4 houses of the Dao sect? Your Great Gan belongs to the Nangong house of the Dao sect. The Dao sect was one of the 2 transcendent powers of the Dao Saint Realm. It was less a single sect and more a massive alliance governed by a council of elders. At the top were 3 sects and 4 houses. Middle-tier powers like the Qin family acted as overlords, managing vast domains on behalf of the Dao sect. For the last 100,000 years, the Qin family had grown rapidly. They harbored the ambition to seize a spot among the 4 houses. However, They had been sabotaged by rivals and forced into the dangerous position of the first combat sequence for the coming war. This was why their clan leader was so desperate to claim the World Tree. With it, they could survive the coming crisis and claim a seat among the elite four houses. But now, this unremarkable dynasty turned out to be a branch of the Nangong house. Qin Wuji felt a surge of silent rage. He wanted to find his subordinates and beat them senseless. They had been in this world for nearly 2 months. How had they failed to uncover Great Gan's true background? The three Qin elders looked at each other, trapped in a sudden, awkward silence. They had climbed onto a stage they couldn't easily leave. "We cannot show weakness now," the fourth elder, Qin Xiao, whispered through a private transmission. "This world has been sealed for millions of years. Even if Great Gan and the Nangong house share an ancestor, the bloodline connection has thinned to nothing. The Nangong house likely views Great Gan no differently than we view the branch families of this world. We can retreat slightly, but we must not lose our momentum. If we look weak, they will take advantage of us." Qin Wuji nodded. He turned back to Nangong Mingde, his voice softening just a fraction. "Out of respect for the Nangong house, I will let your insults pass. However, the deaths of our genius Jiang Qiankun and the leader's daughter, Qin Lan, are tied directly to Nangong Mingde. Great Gan must give the Qin family an explanation." Chapter 399. Someone, slay the heavenly gods. The crowd erupted. The sheer absurdity of the situation left many staring in disbelief. The three heavenly gods of the Qin family had arrived with such overwhelming arrogance, projecting an aura that suggested they would wipe Great Gan from the map at the slightest provocation. How had they withered so quickly? Was the Qin family prone to backing down the moment things got real? Is the background of Great Gan really that powerful? One of the four houses of the Dao sect? Guests whispered among themselves, replaying the exchange between Nangong Mingde and Qin Wuji. They wondered if Great Gan's influence in the Dao Saint realm actually surpassed that of the Qin family. The Qin family had deployed 3 heavenly gods and reportedly had a divine sovereign backing them. If Great Gan was even more formidable, the political landscape had just shifted beneath everyone's feet. The realization sat heavy in the hearts of the various factions. They had been terrified of the Qin family as an outside force that would suffocate the mysterious heaven. Now they realized the true giant had been standing right in front of them all along. Great Gan was the transcendent power they truly had to fear. "What exactly do you want?" Nangong Mingde asked. His voice was heavy, but he felt a secret surge of relief. His clan was indeed powerful in the Dao Saint realm. As one of the 4 houses, they could crush the Qin family easily. However, distant water cannot put out a nearby fire. If these 3 heavenly gods actually attacked, Great Gan currently lacked the foundation to stop them. Since these 3 fools were arrogant enough to cause a scene during a sacred ceremony, there was no telling what other stupid things they might do. The ascension was the priority. If he could negotiate a way for both sides to save face and settle this quietly, it would be for the best. The 3 Qin elders exchanged looks. They felt certain now. Great Gan was not highly valued by the main Nangong house. A smirk played on Qin Wuji's lips as his gaze settled on Nangong Mingde. "The Qin family does not wish to make things difficult for Great Gan," he said smoothly. "How about this? Nangong Mingde will personally dissolve her engagement with Jiang Xuan. Then, in her capacity as the Lord of Great Gan, she will issue an official decree. Great Gan severs all ties with the immortal Jiang family. Our past grievances will be wiped clean." He added a final chilling note to his voice. "I am already giving Great Gan a great deal of face. I hope you are not foolish enough to refuse." The guests were stunned. Could it really be that simple? All eyes turned to Nangong Mingde, wondering how she would choose. The threat of 3 heavenly gods was a physical, crushing reality. Great Gan might be strong in the higher realm, but as Mingde's tone suggested, that help was far, far away. Nangong Mingde hesitated, looking toward Mingde. He didn't have the courage to make this decision. Long term, this demand was insulting and ridiculous. He wanted nothing more than to spit in the faces of these 3 elders. Jiang Xuan's potential was limitless. How could the Qin family even compare? But the immediate problem was survival. If they refused, Great Gan might not live to see that potential realized. Even if all the ancestors of Great Gan sacrificed themselves today alongside the palace's sacred formation, they could, at most, take down one heavenly god. Throughout the entire exchange, Nangong Mingde had watched with cold, detached eyes. She remained as calm as still water until Qin Wuji demanded she break her engagement. Then, her eyes narrowed. A murderous, freezing glint flickered within them. She didn't offer a single word of response. With a sharp flick of her phoenix robes, she bypassed the remainder of the sacrificial rites. She reached out, took the imperial crown from a nearby attendant, and placed it upon her own head. Then, she took her seat upon the dragon chair. The moment she sat, the world reacted. The luck of Great Gan manifested. Divine fire surged into the clouds, and the cry of a phoenix echoed through the 9 heavens. The massive weight of the national destiny settled upon her, and an imperial aura erupted, cowing everything in all directions. Her phoenix robes shimmered and transformed into red-gold dragon robes. Spectral images of a golden dragon of fortune and a soaring phoenix circled her, dancing in harmony. The coronation was complete. She had ascended. Nangong Mingde understood immediately. Hardening his heart, he cast aside all doubt and bowed deeply. Long live the emperor. May she reign for 10,000 years. The heavenly king led the soldiers and the 100 officials in a thunderous echo. Long live the emperor. The sound rolled outward like a tidal wave, shaking the heavens. Every citizen of Great Gan within earshot joined the cry. Long live the emperor. The guests were paralyzed with shock. They couldn't fathom what Manhua was doing. Qin Wuji's brow furrowed as he stared at her. A slow, burning rage began to build in his chest. Her actions were a total, public dismissal of his existence. He feared the Nangong house, which was why he had compromised. That did not mean he lacked the nerve to strike. Great Gan, do you truly intend to provoke the Qin family? Qin Wuji roared. His heavenly god aura erupted, surging and crashing against the heavenly palace. He didn't bother looking at Nangong Mingde. He considered her beneath his notice. He directed his fury at Nangong Mingde, demanding an explanation. He was certain that Great Gan could not withstand the combined wrath of 3 heavenly gods. The guests turned pale, trembling under the weight of that divine pressure. Was Great Gan really going to slap the face of the Qin family so openly? Was this too impulsive? Was it all for Jiang Xuan? They understood she was devoted to him, but surely survival came first? They couldn't understand why the entire dynasty was willing to follow her into this madness. High upon the dragon chair, Nangong Mingde flicked her sleeve and spoke with cold indifference. Nangong Mingde, where are you? Mingde caught her meaning instantly. He stepped forward and bowed. Your servant is here. Nangong Mingde glanced at the 3 Qin elders as if they were already corpses. Then she looked back at Mingde. Small, insignificant people are shouting and provoking my empire. According to the laws of Great Gan, what is the penalty? Mingde's heart skipped a beat, and he felt a bitter smile trace his inner thoughts. But things had gone too far to turn back. The strength of Great Gan had never been built on compromise or retreat. He took a deep breath, his aged face sharpening into a mask of lethal intent. Reporting to the emperor, he shouted, according to our laws, the penalty is public execution to serve as a warning to all. Nangong Mingde nodded and smiled. Her smile was as radiant as the morning sun, dazzling to behold. But everyone could see the bone-chilling coldness behind it. She looked out at the various representatives and spoke calmly. Today is my ascension. You have traveled far to be here, and our hospitality has been lacking. Please forgive us. As an apology, I have prepared a performance for you all. I hope you will watch patiently. Her face suddenly turned like stone. She barked a single command. Someone, slay the heavenly gods. The shout was like a clap of thunder. The crowd was frozen in terror. Their minds raced with the same frantic thought. How? How does Great Gan dare to do this? Presumptuous. Qin Wuji's face turned as dark as a storm. Killing intent boiled over. They had never wanted to tear someone limb from limb as much as they did in this moment. They were heavenly gods, high and mighty beings. Even in the Dao Saint realm, they were supreme experts worshipped by millions. To descend to this lower realm only to be called swine, in order to be slaughtered by a girl in the Tianyuan realm, it was a humiliation beyond words. The earth for 10,000 miles trembled violently. The massive avatars of the 3 elders snapped their eyes open. Beams of divine light pierced through the void, causing the laws of the world to grind to a halt. The sky turned black in an instant. Everyone present scrambled backward in a panic. The heavenly gods were enraged. Great Gan was in mortal danger. Chapter 400. I, alone, am enough. The atmosphere grew heavy as grave expressions spread through the crowd. Many wondered if Great Gan truly possessed the strength to withstand 3 heavenly gods. Could they actually slay a god, or was this a fatal mistake? Several factions sighed inwardly. Even if Nangong Mingde refused to break her engagement or cut ties with the Jiang family, there was no need for such aggressive defiance. The price of provoking a heavenly god was not something easily paid. Lu Fengqi and his 4 companions, however, felt differently. Their hearts pounded with excitement, and their faces flushed with color. Standing up to heavenly gods and ordering their execution while only just entering the Tianyuan realm was an act of supreme dominance. Most people, even those in the heavenly god realm themselves, would lack the courage to face such pressure with such poise. Lu Fengqi whispered to the others, telling them to call for their ancestors. He wanted the elders from the Forbidden Life Zone ready to step in if Great Gan faltered. He was determined to help his sister-in-law finish the job. He looked at the 3 Qin elders and smiled. He had worried his earlier gift of a Saint Manual was too light, but the heads of 3 heavenly gods would make for a much more substantial offering. Near Luo Xinglan, the divine General Huang 12 asked if they should intervene. He knew the goddess had been working tirelessly to secure a friendship with Jiang Xuan and Nangong Mingde. As a general of the desolate heaven, he was prepared to give his life if she commanded it. While he was not yet a match for a heavenly god, he had recently received blessings that gave him the power of a true god. He signaled the other 11 generals of the sect to wake and wait for orders. He watched the Qin elders and licked his lips with a wicked grin, wondering if the blood of a heavenly god tasted sweet. Ancestor 7 Stars looked on with a pale face. Before her arrival, her goddess had told her to assist Great Gan if things went wrong. But she was only a void god. She felt helpless. 6 months ago, a void god was a supreme being who decided the fate of the world, but now she felt like a mere bystander in a changing era. The Buddha attendants watched with detachment. They whispered that the descent of heavenly gods would bring calamity, and that the Buddhist mission to save the masses was now more urgent than ever. Meanwhile, Ing Sihai watched the Qin elders and shook his head. He was glad he had only humored them previously rather than forming a true alliance. He felt the Qin family was digging its own grave, acting with a level of stupidity that seemed to run in their blood. He wondered if these heavenly gods had held high positions for so long that they had lost their sense of reality. Back at the palace, Nangong Mingde's order was met with immediate action. Nangong Mingde did not hesitate. He activated the sacred formation of the heavenly palace and called for the clan to join him. Beams of divine light shot into the formation, shaking the world. The dynasty revealed its hidden depth: 8 void gods and 3 true gods. The crowd gasped. Even the immortal Jiang family only showed 3 void gods on the surface. Great Gan had occupied the central state since ancient times for a reason. If they had ever truly desired to conquer all 5 states, few could have stopped them. However, as impressive as this force was, it still seemed insufficient against 3 heavenly gods. Nangong Mingde and the other 2 true gods powered the sacred formation. Light flared like a beacon, and the air turned into a vast ocean of fire. Runes flew through the void, seizing control of the surrounding territory and transforming 10,000 miles into a divine abyss of flame. The heavenly palace hovered at the center of this inferno. The 3 true gods acted as masters of the fire, using the palace as a source to incinerate everything. The 8 void gods merged with the abyss, using its power to transform into legendary fire beasts. A Qiongqi of flame, a divine sun crow, and a celestial phoenix roared within the heat. Their combined killing intent made the hearts of the onlookers tremble. Nangong Mingde roared the command to kill. The 8 fire beasts charged, carrying torrents of magma toward Qin Wuji with savage intent. The world was consumed by heat and the power of the Great Dao of fire. The 3 Qin elders were surprised. 3 true gods and 8 void gods were mere ants to them. But the presence of a saint-grade formation was unexpected. They had not thought a remote place like this would possess such a thing. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update tomorrow. See you then.